Chapter 1372. Everyone hurriedly used their eyesight to look. On the battlefield, the two of them stood facing each other with a distance of 30 meters between them. On the ground was a broken saber. There was only half of it left in the hands of the masked man in black. His eyes looked at Yun quietly, a sliver of despair slowly seeping into his gaze. A line of blood slowly appeared on his forehead. The line of blood was very thin, but it spread from his forehead all the way down to the bridge of his nose, his lips, his philtrum, his lower jaw. His chest and back were all slowly showing signs of blood. "I've lost," the masked man in black said with a sigh. Yun's gaze was hard and cold. "I've lost the bet. You still have time. With your cultivation base you can still control your body. Within a quarter of an hour, you won't be split in two. I'll give you some time to explain what you lost." He smiled cruelly. "That is, if you don't want to die without descendants." Yun rolled his eyes and chuckled. He was not as angry as he thought to himself. "You people have really put in a lot of effort just to impersonate me. You've thought it through thoroughly, even gathering this much. How thoughtful of you. If you're willing to bet, you must be willing to lose." The black-clothed masked man, who was barely hanging on to his last breath, smiled miserably and said, "I am Fierce Heaven Blade, Li Chong. Deceiving one's heart and acting rashly, pretending to be a hero of Shenhuang, you deserve to die. My family, is in Hengduan Sky Valley." He smiled bitterly and said, "I hope your distinguished self can keep your promise and leave me some descendants." The crowd burst into an uproar. Fierce charge of the heaven-sweeping blade. The first black-clothed masked man to fight was actually heaven-sweeping blade Li Chong. This was a famous expert in the Tao of the saber. Back then, he relied on his sweeping heaven saber to defeat almost everyone under the heavens. After that, he disappeared from the world of mortals. Some people said that this person entered the Tao of the saber and cultivated the Tao of the saber to an even higher level. There were also people who said that this person entered the Western Heaven Holy Palace and no longer stepped into the world of mortals. Who would have thought that he would appear here today? The peerless swordsman had perished in a single day. He no longer had the disdainful splendor of the past when he could sweep the heavens with his saber. Yun's expression was cold as he said faintly, "There's no need to rely on luck. Do you want your soul to self-destruct or do you want me to help you?" Li Chong took a deep breath and said, "Since your skills are inferior to others and you have failed, you should have the awareness of a loser." With a loud laugh, his soul force rushed out from the top of his head. Just as it took shape, it self-detonated, turning into a mass of pure spiritual energy that scattered in all directions. However, a few words remained. "Don't forget your promise." An unparalleled bladesman of his generation came to a sad end. Everyone had a complicated look in their eyes as they watched a legend of the saber suddenly disappear. Almost everyone had an indescribable and inexplicable feeling in their hearts. Yun's expression remained cold. When he lifted his head abruptly, his eyes stared emotionlessly at the remaining 11 people and said faintly, "Next." Seeing that heaven-traversing saber was defeated in an instant, the 11 people's initial confidence of victory was shaken. Many of them felt that their abilities were almost on par with heaven-traversing saber Li Chong's. The second and third. In short, the first few who went up would not be able to do well, so they could not help feeling hesitant. After a while, a masked man in black stepped forward and said hatefully, "You do have some skills to impersonate me." Yun did not respond at all. Instead, he glanced at the masked man in black who had stepped out of the formation and curled his finger. "Presumptuous." The black-clothed masked man swung his saber in a backhand manner. As he leaped up, he circled in midair, and a continuous saber mountain appeared in the sky. Following that, the thousands of saber lights on the continuous saber mountain converged at one point. The incessant saber lights converged to form an endless stream of flashing light, descending from the sky with an unstoppable force. The divine edge flashed again, dancing in the air with extreme agility. With a swoosh, the endless saber veil rose in the opposite direction. It was just a clash of two saber lights that fell from the sky and rose from the ground, but in the eyes of the spectators, they felt an inexplicable sense of bewilderment. It was as if what they were seeing was another secular world. Everything in the mortal world was so real and real. It was like they were in their own dreams. Yun had used his ultimate skill right from the start of the fight. Saber truth. Saber laic. The seemingly opposing attacks did not produce the expected violent impact when they clashed. Instead, the masked man's saberlight was deflected by Yun Yang's saber lacerating worldly bliss, and all of them missed their target. After Yun Yang's cultivation base had advanced, his understanding of saber truth had reached a new level as well. Yun Yang's saber strike was almost at the level of perfection in this technique. Under the saber, the secular world. Although the black-clothed masked man was surprised that his all-out attack had no effect, he reacted quickly and changed his attack. However, just as he was about to change his attack, a fist suddenly appeared in front of him. It was Yun Yang's fist. Yun Yang's gaze was like lightning as he saw through the masked man's weakness. The swift punch had already pierced through the masked man's protective saber web and landed on his face. Bang! The masked man in black could not help but tilt his head back, feeling a sharp pain on his face. Amidst his shock, he instinctively retreated, wanting to distance himself from Yun Yang and counterattack. However, he could only feel a chill on his chest as a saber slashed across his right shoulder all the way down to the left side of his waist. He froze as if he had been electrocuted. A thought flashed through his mind. I've lost? I've lost. I've lost so badly that I have nothing to say. The two battles were over in the blink of an eye. The remaining 10 masked men in black who had a certain understanding of Yun Yang's ability were filled with despair. They had never expected Yun Yang's ability to be so formidable. It was something that they could never hope to match. It could be said that the first encounter with ferocious saber, Li Chong, was a coincidence, but the outcome of this battle was similar to the previous one. Yun Yang's ability to accurately grasp the tiny gap between the previous move and the change of move. His unique vision and superb skills had already placed him above everyone else. Thinking back to the two peerless saber forms that had been impeccable, how could they be lucky enough to fight Yun Yang? These people could only be crushed by Yun Yang. After 2 consecutive battles, the rest of the masked men recognized this fact. They could not help cursing inwardly. Yun Yang's ability was completely different from what they had been told. This was the epitome of deceit. The masked men in black's abilities were almost on par with each other. Although there was a slight difference in their abilities, the disparity was not huge. Ferocious Saber's death was a wake-up call for them, but they still had the thought of being lucky, hoping that it was a coincidence. However, the second battle that ended even faster had completely dispelled their fantasies. Yinyang Bridge. Qiao Jiufan. 3rd level Saint Lord Pinnacle. He had been defeated cleanly by Yun Yang's 2 saber strikes and 1 punch, dead. The remaining 10 masked men in black felt a chill run down their spines. Dongfang Xingchen, who was watching the battle from above, was not only disheartened, but his expression was unusually ugly as well. None of the other chosen's expressions were any better. They thought that they knew Yun Yang's background and cultivation base very well, but when had he become so strong? If you were so strong, why didn't you show it earlier? You could have shown it earlier. If you had, I wouldn't have thought about dealing with you. At least, I would have come up with a more comprehensive plan. Now, I can't back down now. Yun Yang stood in the middle of the battle and said calmly, 2. Who's next? None of the 10 masked men in black stepped forward for a long while. They were all quiet, their gazes complicated. Their previous calm demeanor was nowhere to be seen. I admit defeat. After some time, one of them took off his mask and said with a bitter smile, I'm an imposter. Yun Yang's face was devoid of any emotion as he said faintly, even if you admit defeat, your Tao will vanish. Your heaven's vow was based on your defeat, and admitting defeat is also a way of expressing your defeat. Come, according to the vow, hand over your life and tell me where your family is. Under heaven's vow, who can be lucky? Yun Yang looked at the man with a cold gaze. The man's expression was conflicted as he said angrily, if so, why don't I fight it out with you? As he spoke, he drew his saber with a swoosh. Yun Yang said faintly, let me remind you, you've already lost when you admit defeat. If you fight again, I'm afraid I won't have to deal with you anymore. The masked man in black's expression changed as he suddenly roared, then let me die under heaven's punishment. He drew his saber and pointed it straight at Yun Yang. The force was not any weaker than the 2 men before him. It was obvious that he was determined to fight, hoping for a fluke. If he could drag Yun Yang along with him, it would be the most worthwhile. Even if it cost Yun Yang's ability, it was still valuable. It was a pity that heaven's vow came faster than he had imagined. A clap of thunder rang in the air as a bolt of lightning streaked across the sky. The masked man in black's attack stopped abruptly. He did not even have the time to struggle. He did not even leave a word before his soul was destroyed, his body and Tao vanishing. Yun Yang was silent. This man would rather die under heaven's punishment than reveal the whereabouts of his family. It was equivalent to dragging his family down with him, giving up the chance to preserve the last of his bloodline. Yun Yang really did not know what to say. The heaven's vow came as scheduled and was fulfilled like a god. Of course, it would not let his family go. It was a demonstration of the authority of heaven's law that had to be fulfilled once the vow was made. There was no such thing as a fluke. Why bother? Yun Yang sighed and raised his head. Who's next? Dongfang Xingchen and the other sons of heaven's expressions grew uglier. At this point, they looked a little menacing. They had painstakingly come up with a plan that did not care about the cost and consequences. They had even chosen Night City as the perfect location to carry out the plan. Everything was in their favor, but under Yun Yang's absolute ability, their perfect assassination plan had failed. It had no effect at all. Instead, it had further promoted Yun Yang's immortal reputation. Not only was it a futile effort, it was suicidal. The loss of 13, third-grade Saint Monarchs was even more heart-wrenching. Even for them, they couldn't afford to waste this kind of combat power. As the Saint Lords were killed by Yun Yang one by one and their identities were exposed, everyone basically knew who was behind these people. Saint Lord cultivators were powerful beings who stood at the pinnacle of the entire Xianhuang world. Every single one of them was a precious, high-end fighting force. There were only a handful of them in total. Ordinary people and forces might not know of their current backgrounds. However, for those who were truly in the upper echelons, a single glance at the forces they belonged to would allow them to know who was the one commanding these people. The sons of heaven looked at each other and obtained the information they wanted from the ugly expressions on each other's faces. A few of them looked especially ugly. Dongfang Xingchen, Shimen Huanyu, Beigong Wushuang, and Xinyu, Jia Shixiang, Nantian Yun. While the others were not as pale as the ones before them, they still looked a little gloomy. Lai Kuangfing, Lanting, Feng Patian, and Huan Wenyuan, who had been the fiercest earlier, did not have much of a change in their expressions. Yun Yang stood in the middle of the field and looked at the mess on the ground. He sighed softly and said, "Actually, the hardest thing in life is how to prove that you are yourself. The truth has proven that this is really difficult to prove. Fortunately, all of you have given me this ingenious method to prove that I am Yun Yang, the bound of universe's supreme cloud." Yun Yang smiled faintly and said, "Thank you, everyone. Sigh, I really didn't expect there to be so many imposters. I don't know if there will be more imposters in the future. I am very worried about this problem." He was just pretending to be innocent after getting what he wanted. There were only a few Saint Monarchs in this world who were of the 3rd level and above. Who else would have the guts to impersonate you? Had they not had enough of death? The facial muscles of the sons of heaven began to twitch. Dongfang Xingchen, who had been controlling the situation, did not even want to say anything. Beigong Wushuang laughed dryly and said, "Lord Supreme Cloud's divine might is indeed unparalleled and dominates the world. Today, haha. Let's just treat this bunch of clowns as putting on a show for us." The farce they've created has also allowed Lord Supreme Cloud to display his divine might and broaden our horizons. Today's banquet will surely be remembered as a battle that will be praised by all. Come, let's drink." Yun Yang's gaze focused on the north for a moment before he turned to Sacred Heart Palace's Great Elder Lei Qianli and said, "Great Elder Lei." Lei Qianli shuddered and forced a smile. "Lord Supreme Cloud." Yun Yang said coldly, "I wonder if Great Elder Lei still has any doubts about who is Lord Supreme Cloud." Lei Qianli paled. "Lord Supreme Cloud must be joking." Yun Yang replied faintly, "What I'm asking you is, do you still have doubts in your heart?" "How would I have the leisure to joke with you?" Lei Qianli swallowed his anger and said bitterly, "No more." Yun Yang scoffed and said, "How old is Grand Elder Lei this year?" Lei Qianli coughed and laughed dryly. "I wonder what Lord Supreme Cloud means," Yun Yang said faintly. "I think that you, Lei Qianli, have gone senile. This is what I mean. I really can't go all out today, so I'll rest for a day or two. Amp, GT. Chapter 1373. Lei Qianli's face gradually turned pale. He had confirmed the fact that after today, he would be blacklisted by Yun Yang, the hero of the Bound of Universe. Good days would be hard to come by. However, he could not respond to this and could only smile awkwardly. Yun Yang's cold gaze still swept across the crowd. Whoever his gaze landed on had to lower their head. No one even raised their head, let alone look at him. His lightning-like gaze seemed to be able to penetrate one's heart and see through one's innards. At this moment, Yun Yang's domineering aura overpowered the entire place. At the same time, the 3 heavenly palaces had mobilized their forces. Other than one of the 13 impersonating Yun Yang, who was annihilated by Heaven Dao's lightning tribulation for breaking his vow, there was no need to pursue the matter further. The other 12 families' residences had already sent teams to deal with them. Innocent? Cruel? When Yun Yang forced them to make the vow, he had never thought about this question. How could there be so many innocent and uninnocent people in this world? If he were to be forced to his death by them, what would happen to the residents of 9 Supremes? How many families were involved in the residence of 9 Supremes' disciples now? Once they lost their current status and lifestyle, would they be innocent? Since they had chosen to betray the hero for their own selfish desires, disregarding the hero's sacrifice, attempting to make the hero bleed before crying and even die in grievance, they deserved it no matter what price they had to pay. Heroes were also human beings. They could shed their blood for mankind, but what right did they have to protect those ungrateful people? Those people were not human at all, they were scum. The banquet at Golden Knight Tower ended very quickly. Since the farce was over, no one was in the mood to continue. Yun Yang's expression was as usual. He ate and drank as if there was no one else around, feasting and enjoying himself. He also conversed with Xueqi and the others, talking about the recent situation of the residents of 9 Supremes, as well as their respective cultivation realizations. During this period, Ji Lingxi came with a team and discussed with Lei Qianli from the neighboring Sacred Heart Palace. Great Elder Lei, why don't we change rooms? Would you like to go to the other side? Or you can just leave. The hatred in Lei Qianli's heart was limitless and he couldn't speak for a long time. However, due to the situation, he didn't dare to resist. The incident of Ji Lingxi and Shangguan Lingxiu killing 3 lords was still fresh in his mind. If they could kill those people, it would be even easier for them to kill him, Lei Qianli. Moreover, the people from the Sacred Heart Palace were already restless. A considerable number of them looked at Lei Qianli with unfriendly gazes. If not for the fact that they were in public, they would have stood up and attacked him. We are all here to welcome Lord Supreme Cloud with sincerity. Lord Templemaster's orders were clear. Lord Supreme Cloud's original intention of heading to the Demon Clan was for the sake of the Sacred Heart Palace. Now that he has made an outstanding contribution, not only is his contribution to the Bound of Universe, but he is also a great hero of the Sacred Heart Palace. Even if all of you die, you must escort Lord Supreme Cloud back safely. But what about you, Lei Qianli? You're actually doubtful too. Also, the things you said and did, do you think we're all blind and deaf? When we return to the Sacred Heart Palace, there will be time to settle the score with you. The Sacred Heart Palace could have shared Supreme Cloud's glory, but after what you've done, the Sacred Heart Palace has lost all its dignity and become a laughingstock. Not only have we become the butt of jokes, but our relationship with Lord Supreme Cloud has also dropped to the freezing point. Let's go. A few Sacred Heart Palace elders stood up and ushered Ji Lingxi and the others in. This way, Lei Qianli could not leave even if he wanted to. Lei Qianli bade farewell with a gloomy face. He, who had always been in a high position, felt that even if he poured out all the water in the world, it would not be able to wash away the shame on his face today. Some of the 12 holy sons also felt embarrassed. After drinking a few cups of wine, some of them began to feel tipsy. Under such circumstances, the banquet naturally ended quickly. However, when Yun Yang came out of the Golden Knight Tower, the moon was already high in the sky. The cold light sprinkled on the ground, and the whole city was quiet. Yun Yang walked in front with his hands clasped behind his back. Xueqi and the others followed quietly behind him, tactfully not disturbing him. Yun Xiuxin and the other disciples, on the other hand, looked at their sect leader's figure from behind, their eyes gleaming. The little fellows were simple-minded and had long forgotten the previous humiliation. Now, their hearts were filled with the heroic image of their master suppressing the heroes and dominating the world with his saber. Their minds were filled with endless fantasies. If I can be like this one day. Facing the world's heroes and shouting, who else? Next. Just thinking about it was enough to make one's head spin. It was a perfect dream. As the group walked forward, Xueqi, who was immersed in her reverie, suddenly shouted, "Who else?" Ha 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 ha. The little girl was too immersed in her role and lost control of herself for a moment. After she shouted it out, she felt so good that she could not stop laughing. Everyone looked at her, and as soon as they understood what she meant, they burst into laughter that lasted for a long time. "Where do you live?" Yunyang turned to ask Lingxi and Lingxiu. "What do you want to do?" Lingxi pursed her lips. Wuchen and the others winked at each other for a while, thinking, "What do I want to do? Does sect leader want to?" Hee hee hee. Yunyang coughed and said, "It's still early. We've reunited after a long time, and we didn't drink to our heart's content just now. Plus, we're all rubbish. When Wuchen and the others go back to rest, I'll drink with you. Shall we have a chat and talk about our parting experiences?" "We'll go too. We have a lot to tell Master." Yun Xiuxin raised her hand and shouted. Luo Dajiang laughed and said, "Yes, yes, yes. We'll go too. We have a lot to tell Boss too." Wuchen slapped Luo Dajiang in the face in exasperation. "What are you going to do? What do you want to do? You are a man with a wife. Why are you here to make trouble?" Luo Dajiang came to his senses at once and coughed dryly. "Yes, we have nothing to do, so we won't go." Yunyang guffawed, looking carefree. Lingxi chuckled and said, "It's still early. Since we all feel that we didn't enjoy ourselves to our heart's content just now, let's leave the rest of the time to ourselves. The two sects can get together and have some fun. Come, let's find a place to drink. Let's go, let's do whatever we want." Everyone cheered in unison. The reunion, which they had not seen for a long time, lasted until the second half of the night, almost dawn. During this period, Yunyang could clearly feel countless divine senses probing him, but they disappeared as soon as they confirmed that this was the case. Yunyang was calm, gulping down the wine and eating the meat, not taking it to heart at all. Now that he had Lingxi and Lingxiu, the two fake saints by his side, he was invincible. Even if the Phoenix Emperor and the Dragon Emperor, the two enemies, came together, Yunyang felt that he would dare to lie down and sleep in front of them, let alone a sneak attack from a saint. The people from the two sects staggered from the wine, still in high spirits. Ling Xiaozue, Du Guchou, and Gu Chaoyang had downed 9 pots of wine with Yunyang. Everyone could not help but recall everything that had happened in the Tianxian continent back then, feeling as if it was no longer a dream. Du Guchou was drunk, which was rare. He had sealed his spiritual energy and drank until he was dead drunk, but he was still guffawing. "Wifey, I'll be able to see you very soon." Ha ha ha. After a few guffaws he burst into tears. His wife had passed away for many years and Du Guchou had been searching for a way to resurrect her. Now that he had witnessed Yunyang's dominance over the crowd, he could clearly feel that the day he had been dreaming of was not far away. At least, it was no longer as unreachable as before. He was trembling with excitement. The drinking lasted until dawn before everyone returned to their rooms to sleep. Yunyang, on the other hand, had been captured by Lingxi and Lingxiu into their own rooms. What exactly were they going to do? Quick, quick, quick. The two ladies stood before Yunyang, anticipation and impatience written all over their faces. Yunyang was genuinely bewildered. What were they doing? Had the two ladies fallen in love? Was there a need for them to be so eager? They should at least be a little more reserved. Yunyang was rather bashful. "I'm not ready yet." "What are you hesitating for? Take off your mask quickly and let us have a look," Lingxi said excitedly. Yunyang was speechless. "What? Both of you called me into the room in such a hurry just to see this?" Although this is also erotic, but Yunyang felt a little dejected. Lingxiu looked hopeful as she said, "Hurry up, I can't wait anymore. Take that thing off quickly. I want to have a good look, see if it looks good. You probably don't know this, but I love little foxes the most." Yunyang was speechless. Yunyang did not feel well. He was stupefied and dumbfounded. He stared at Lingxi and Lingxiu with wide eyes. After a while he said helplessly, "We haven't seen each other for so many years. Shouldn't we be catching up first? Shouldn't we be pleasantly surprised to reunite after such a long time? Shouldn't we? Cut the useless crap with me. You're just spouting nonsense." Lingxi said domineeringly, What do you mean by catching up? You're already here and you're not even wearing anything. What's there to catch up on? Take off your mask quickly and let us admire it. We've been looking forward to seeing your current face for so long. Can you stop keeping us in suspense? Shangguan Lingxiu pressed her lips together and said, even if we want to catch up, we can't feel anything with your mask on. Take it off quickly and we'll accompany you to say our goodbyes. Yun Yang looked miserable as he sighed inwardly. Am I keeping them in suspense? Honestly, how is this possible? Seeing that Yun Yang did not move, the two girls exchanged glances and charged forward. Ji Lingxi pressed Yun Yang down directly. Sister Lingxiu, quick! Shangguan Lingxiu was quick as well. With a swoosh, she pulled Yun Yang's mask off, revealing a helpless fox face to the two girls. It had pointy ears, a pointy mouth and rolling eyeballs. Ha ha ha! Ji Lingxi could not hold back her laughter as she fell onto the bed, laughing uncontrollably. Shangguan Lingxiu tried to hold back her laughter for a moment, but she could not help pursing her lips and shrugging her shoulders. It was obvious that she was having a hard time holding it in. Yun Yang said indignantly, Are you two really so funny? No. The two girls spoke in unison, trying their best to keep the smiles on their faces, but it was only for a moment before they burst out laughing. Yun Yang sighed at the sky. He now had a feeling that men and women, whether it was their physical or psychological structures, were really different. For example, he only wanted to know what they had been through. He wanted to know if their journey had been tough, if there was anything that hurt them, and if there was anything that needed his help. However, the only thing they were concerned about was whether his fox face was cute, whether it was interesting or not. Also, whether he looked good. No, it should be whether he looked good in their eyes. I can't go on like this anymore. Yun Yang sighed unconsciously and extended his arms to hug Ji Lingxi, hoping to pray for some support. Don't touch me. Ji Lingxi looked at him warily. You should be prepared to be beaten if you want to hug me. Yun Yang turned to hug Shangguan Lingxiu. Don't come over. Shangguan Lingxiu looked wary. You want to touch me with that fox head of yours? Yun Yang's eyes shone as he quickly changed the topic. Actually, I've really missed you all these years. Shangguan Lingxiu's expression softened immediately. Ji Lingxi laughed on the bed. Sister Lingxiu, don't be fooled by this fellow. There's no one else in this world who can compete with his mouth. Shangguan Lingxiu was bewildered. This fellow hugging us just now was fake. He just wanted to try. Ji Lingxi could read Yun Yang's mind like the back of her hand. He's been wanting to do something naughty since a few years ago, but he's never been able to match his opponent and has to take the beating instead. I tried it just now. I still don't stand a chance here, but you said, ha ha ha, you've seen the difference now. Shangguan Lingxiu's mind raced as she blushed. What she had said just now was you want to touch me with that fox head of yours, but she had not mentioned anything about the recoil. Didn't that mean that he could touch her when he wasn't wearing a fox's head? No wonder this fellow's foxy face was smiling so wretchedly. Yun Yang said seriously, I didn't mean it that way. I'm not that kind of person. Shangguan Lingxiu snorted with a flushed face and said, You're that kind of person. I don't think you have any good intentions. After a bout of laughter, she returned to the topic at hand. How can you go, fox head? I'll probably have to attain the cultivation base of a saint before I can break the demonic race's heaven sealing seal. Speaking of this, Yun Yang heaved another long sigh. The heaven sealing seal had sealed more than 90% of his unique ability. If he had not broken through to the 7th stage of the endless divine art previously, he would have been in real danger if he said he was not afraid of this battle. Although his cultivation base had improved tremendously, it did not mean that he was completely safe in the bound of universe. The reason why these holy sons had only sent out their saint lords to deal with him was probably because of the ability he had displayed previously. Now that half of his ability had been exposed, if he were to be pursued further, if the assailant was a half-saint, he might not dare say that he could handle it. Chapter 1374. They were all deleted. I am the Supreme, is taking a leave of absence. Currently typing. Please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1375. What level of cultivation base are you at now? Is it enough to handle the situation? I can see that none of the holy children and many other forces are kind to you, Ji Lingxi asked with concern. I'm probably a 4th-level beginner Saint Lord. Yunyang was a little depressed. I've just broken through recently. I'm afraid there will be a period of stagnation in my progress. My actual cultivation base, compared to the current situation. Sigh, it's still not enough. Ha ha. Ji Lingxi chuckled. Ha ha. Shangguan Lingxiu chuckled. Both girls were a little aggrieved. Both of us boasted that we've improved tremendously, but we're only 2nd or 3rd level Saint Venerables now. This fellow came up with us and is already a 4th level Saint Lord. Yet, he's still complaining about the slow pace. Are you mocking us? Or are you showing off? Both girls' gazes were unfriendly as they thought about it. What should we do next? Faced with this question, the three of them had very different perspectives. Ji Lingxi and Shangguan Lingxiu's choices were identical. After this, at least one of us has to be by your side. If there's a strong enemy that you can't handle, we'll take care of it. Both girls were confident in their self-defense state. They were impenetrable to all spells and all evils. In short, all attacks that came would not harm them, but the enemy would have to endure the most extreme counterattack. Up until now, from the Tianqian continent to the bound of universe, be it the humans, the demon race or the profound beasts, there had never been a single living thing that could break through this layer of defense. No, there had never been an enemy who could survive the recoil of danger. There was still one exception, Yunyang. This fellow was the most resistant to shock. His skin was thick and tough. Of course, everyone knew the real reason why he did not die from the recoil, so there was no need to elaborate further. Ji Lingxi's train of thought was clear. Now that you've returned and we're reunited, the residents of 9 Supremes and the 9th Supremes will naturally merge into one. We heard that you've caused quite a commotion over there, claiming to be the first superior class celestial luck banner. Let's merge the residents of 9 Supremes directly. Sister Lingxiu will go back to reorganize the residents of 9 Supremes later, then bring some men to the residents of 9 Supremes. I'll stay by your side, or I'll go back to reorganize my men and merge them. Ji Lingxi was incomparably domineering. You can choose between these two options. Yunyang smiled bitterly. These two choices were essentially the same. What else was there to choose? Shangguan Lingxiu chuckled. If it's really difficult, both of us can go with you. It's the same for old Gu and the rest to go back and pack up their men. We've been prepared for this and have come to a consensus with old Gu and the rest. The bitter smile on Yunyang's face deepened. I'm not against the merger, but what are your plans after that? Yunyang asked. What plans? We don't have any plans anymore. Ji Lingxi snorted and rolled her eyes. When we couldn't find you, we had to do everything we could. Now that we've found you, why do you still need us to work? Shangguan Lingxiu coughed and said, I can help with the internal affairs. Yunyang rested a hand on his forehead. This attitude of these two women, this behavior, it was clearly the rhythm of marrying a man to marry a man, getting dressed and eating. Sisters, this isn't something you can just walk away from now on. Can the disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes accept all of it? Yunyang frowned and said, Old Gu, we know Ling Xiaozue and the rest very well, and we have a close relationship. I'll make arrangements if I say so. The guest elders in the sect are fine. But what about the disciples you two have taken in? They were the leading disciples when they were in the residence of 9 Supremes, but it won't be the same anymore when they're here. There's a lot more to talk about, such as clarity, resources, treatment, and so on. As a teacher, how can I not consider the feelings of my own disciples? I see that you're worried about this. Elder Gu has already discussed this with us. Ji Lingxi said, the residence of 9 Supremes was founded because of the residents of 9 Supremes. Be it us, Elder Gu and the rest, or the disciples, we've long known about this. Although we don't have the status of a leader, we have the new title of the residents of 9 Supremes' wives. The disciples we've taken in are still our disciples, at least in name. In this case, I believe their status won't be any lower than the other Supremes' disciples. Besides, we've long heard about the residents of 9 Supremes. The residents of 9 Supremes emphasizes healthy competition among the disciples, and we'll still have to look at their individual abilities in the future. If they're really capable of earning their position, they can just snatch it. If they're not, who can they blame when they're dealt with? Yunyang thought about it and said, all right. Yunyang agreed with the two women. The merger of the two residences was inevitable. Since it was unavoidable, The subsequent matters would have to wait until after the merger. Whatever problems arose, they would be solved. Man was man, and there would always be a solution no matter how big the problem was. It would be unrealistic to attempt to solve all the problems now. Let's leave the residence of the Ninth Supremes as it is. However, I don't want you two to follow me. I don't need you two to follow me. Yun Yang smiled faintly. This is a martial world journey that I need to face alone. It has nothing to do with anything else. If I rely on the two of you to create an absolutely safe environment, it'll be an obstacle that's difficult to overcome in my cultivation journey. It's a physical obstacle, and a mental obstacle as well. It'll be difficult for me to improve further. The two women agreed to Yun Yang's words after a moment of contemplation. They did not pester him further. After all, they were all high-level martial artists. They were well aware of the crux of the matter. The cultivation journey focused on training one's heart. Once a martial artist's life and death experience was interfered with by external forces, his confidence would be greatly reduced. Even if he had the ability to handle the situation, he would still be hesitant. When faced with similar situations in the future, it would only worsen. How far could he go on the path of recovery? The two women's desire to protect Yun Yang's safety was understandable and unquestionable. However, to Yun Yang, there would be endless obstacles in his cultivation journey. Perhaps he would never be able to progress further. Speaking of which, the cultivation base achievement of both of you is what truly puzzles me. Yun Yang was rather puzzled. According to your encounters and mentors, even if your cultivation base can't be compared to mine, it shouldn't stop there. Perhaps in the eyes of others, Ji Lingxi and Shangguan Lingxiu's cultivation base advancement speed was already unimaginably terrifying, rarely seen since time immemorial. However, Yun Yang knew very well that it was not normal for the two women to only be second or third grade Supreme Saint now. Ji Lingxi was someone who could advance even in her dreams, while Shangguan Lingxiu's master was an expert in the universe. How could he not have the means to help Shangguan Lingxiu improve her cultivation base as soon as possible? Ji Lingxi snorted and pouted. We're so sorry that our cultivation base is so low. We've lowered your status as the Bound of Universe Supreme. Are you looking down on us, sisters? Do you want to spar right here and now? Ji Lingxi's words were rather harsh. If they were to fight anyone else in this world, they would only end up being beaten up. It was especially so when they were up against Yun Yang. Back in the day, a certain someone had been beaten up like a grandchild. Even though their cultivation base was slightly different now, the situation had not improved. If they were to really fight, a certain someone would still be beaten up like a grandchild. Can you break my divine light shield? Shangguan Lingxiu, on the other hand, was more honest. She smiled and said, You don't have to worry about our cultivation base. Yun Yang understood immediately and could not help feeling inexplicably touched. So you're worried about me? In an instant he understood. It was not that the two women could not improve faster in their cultivation, but they were worried about him. Were they worried that they would leave him behind if they improved too quickly? That he could not accept it? Strictly speaking, no one in this world, other than Yun Yang, had the right to comment on the two ladies' cultivation years and the fact that they had already attained the second tier of Supreme Saint and above. There was no one else in the Bound of Universe who could improve faster than this since the beginning of time. Yun Yang understood it in an instant. He could not help but feel warmth in his heart, his gaze exceptionally gentle. It had to be said that Ji Lingxi and Shangguan Lingxiu's personalities were the ideal wives and loving mothers that every man in this world yearned for. Although Ji Lingxi was a little unruly and her words were more forceful, her consideration for Yun Yang was exactly the same as Shangguan Lingxiu's. Thinking about it again, before he went to the demon race, his cultivation base was only at the level of a royal saint. It had only been about a year and a half since then. If it were not for the fortuitous encounter that allowed him to harvest so much karmic chi in the demon clan and the countless sparring sessions in the East Celestial Palace, his cultivation-based progress would probably be similar to Ji Lingxi and Shangguan Lingxiu's current level. There's no need to be like this. Yun Yang sighed. Although you're not afraid. He could not help but chuckle halfway through his words. It was really useless for these two women to cultivate. There was hardly any place for them to use their skills. No one in this world could hurt them. Not even himself. What was the use for them to raise their cultivation base? They could only be used for sparring. It was no wonder that they dared to wait for him so leisurely. There was no one, no force, No living being in this world that could break through their protective divine light. Even if they wanted to be competitive, it would be difficult to find an opponent. No matter what, you still have to improve your ability as soon as possible. Yun Yang reminded them, only by taking the initiative in your own hands can you avoid being passive to the greatest extent. You can't always expect others to hit you. Even if you have this trump card, sometimes you'll still be wronged. Ji Lingxi gritted her teeth and said, I know. Isn't this what happened today? I've been wronged. If I'm strong enough, none of these people here today will live. One day, justice will be served just like in Tianxian continent in the past. Yun Yang rolled his eyes at once. Big sister, you were even more in the limelight than I was when we were in Tianxian continent. Shangguan Lingxiu and Ji Lingxi's heads were filled with questions once they thought about what happened at the banquet that night. They were filled with anger. Although it was Yun Yang himself who had connived and had a purpose in mind, causing the incident to be magnified, the two ladies still felt indescribably frustrated. No matter what, her man had made such a huge contribution to the entire human race. He had risked his life and risked his life. Not only did he not enjoy the least bit of honor when he came back, he even had to suffer such unfair treatment. Even if there were other motives involved, it wouldn't do. We can't even bear to bully our own man. Who do you think you are? Among the two ladies, Shangguan Lingxiu was the most indignant about this matter. She was born of a family of generals and all the men in her family had died in battle for the country. The incident in Tianxian continent had almost humiliated the fallen heroes. The past was still fresh in her mind. Now that it was her man's turn, the two ladies could not help but feel indignant and resentful. You're quite magnanimous. You're even willing to spare the bloodline of scum who committed such a shady business. You're simply being soft-hearted and soft-hearted when dealing with such scum. Where did the decisive and straightforward Tianxian think tank of the past go? They didn't treat you with the courtesy of a hero, so why are you acting so righteous and giving them leeway? Ji Lingxi pursed her lips and said unhappily, even if we take 10,000 steps back, it'll still take a lot of effort for us to run around the 11 locations that were revealed, won't it? Do you have a lot of time to waste now? Yun Yang chuckled. Lingxi, you're thinking too much. Why would we need to deal with those remnants? Those families should have been completely annihilated by now. Not a single one of them was left alive. After all, they're eradicating the rebels. Leaving behind a torch will only cause endless trouble. Yun Yang chuckled. Shangguan Lingxiu frowned and asked, did the 3 heavenly palaces make a move? Yun Yang's expression was indifferent. I've helped them find so many scum. Do I still have to deal with the aftermath myself? Are those people just sitting around doing nothing? So what about the rest of them? Especially those sons of saints. If we really want to talk about it, they're the instigators, the masterminds, the culprits. Shangguan Lingxiu said. We don't need to care. I'm afraid that even if I'm willing to let go now, the 3 palace masters won't let go either. Those people have gone too far, they've crossed the line too much. As the saying goes, they're digging their own graves. Yun Yang smiled. Both of you can go back without worry. Just reorganize the people in your sects and come to the residence of 9 Supremes. Once both of you leave, those who are against me will stir up trouble immediately. That's too risky. Ji Lingxi and Shangguan Lingxiu came to a sudden realization. Their stunning performance at the banquet had chilled the hearts of Dongfang Xingchen and the others. They had determined that the cultivation base of the two ladies was at least at the level of a saint. With the 2 female guards protecting the fox-faced Yun Yang, they could only watch helplessly. Now that Yun Yang had asked the 2 ladies to leave, it was equivalent to opening the door for those who were plotting against them. How could the 2 ladies be at ease? Those people don't know the background of the both of you. Just based on your stunning appearance, everyone has long been scared silly. Yun Yang chuckled bitterly. I can even say with certainty that if the both of you hadn't made it clear that you're on my side, this banquet might not have ended so hastily. They might have something else up their sleeves, but they stopped out of fear of the both of you. In other words, as long as the both of you are still with me, those who want to go against me won't dare to do anything. Ji Lingxi bit her lip and said, You have your reasons. Let us discuss this. Yun Yang watched as the 2 ladies whispered into each other's ears for a long time before they turned around to play rock, paper, scissors. Then he turned around and said, Then we'll go back to prepare. Later, ask the residents of 9 Supremes to send a few people back as well so that we can handle the corresponding matters after we go over. Yun Yang was relieved and said, "Of course. It'll be too dangerous for Wuchen and the rest to stay here after the both of you leave. I'll ask them to go back and all of you leave. Only then will I have nothing to worry about. I only have to take care of myself." It's decided then. Ji Lingxi and Shangguan Lingxiu were surprisingly easy to talk to. Both of them agreed to whatever Yun Yang said obediently, making sect leader Yun feel like his status had risen considerably. He felt like he was the one who had the authority of a husband. This had never happened before. Then, it was the two ladies' turn to listen to a certain someone boast about what happened in the Holy Land of Tianfa and the demon race, exclaiming from time to time. Under the focus of their sparkling eyes, Yun Yang's enthusiasm grew. Since there were no outsiders present, the two ladies removed their veils. Shangguan Lingxiu was a stunning beauty while Ji Lingxi. Honestly, it had been a long time since Yun Yang and Ji Lingxi had seen each other's faces in their entirety. Thinking back to the past, they would either disguise themselves, apply ointment, or even blacken themselves. Now that they met again, it felt like they had met again after a lifetime. There were not many words that could describe Ji Lingxi's face. There was only one word that could be used to describe it. Perfect. Perfect skin tone, perfect proportions, perfect facial features, perfect aura, perfect. Everything was perfect. Everything was perfect, and there was not a single flaw to be found. "What are you looking at?" Ji Lingxi saw that Yun Yang had suddenly stopped talking. She looked up and saw that the fox was staring at her blankly. She could not help blushing and whining. Shangguan Lingxiu said sourly, "Younger sister Lingxi is much prettier than me, isn't she?" Ahaha. Spring orchid and autumn chrysanthemum, each in their own way. Yun Yang's eyes were filled with reverie as he chuckled. His eyes flickered, already imagining things like this and that after they got married. This fellow is up to no good. Ji Lingxi scrunched her nose and commented, "His expression and gaze are too perverted." Shangguan Lingxiu shared the same sentiment. When this fellow had looked at her with narrowed eyes just now, she had actually felt like she had been stripped naked. This fellow's gaze now was extremely invasive. If you look at us like that again, we'll beat you to death, you stinky fox." Ji Lingxi said fiercely. "If you were still a pretty boy, you would look at us and we would look at you. Each of us was pleasing to the eye and a feast for the eyes, but you're a fox now. Coupled with that perverted expression, it's truly unbearable to look at. We just want to hit you. Ha ha ha." Yun Yang chuckled and said, "I don't need to look at you like that. Besides, it's only a matter of time before we get married. Both of you will be mine then. I can look at you however I want then, right? I'll strip you naked and see. You're courting death. Pervert." Before his words echoed in the air, the two ladies pounced on him at the same time, beating him up with flushed faces. "Who's yours? Who's going to marry you? Dream on." Ha ha ha. Yun Yang hugged his head as he endured the beating, feeling delighted as the punches landed on his flesh. As a single dog, what could be better than having two peerless beauties as fiancés? "You're hitting me now, but it'll be my turn to hit you after we get married." Yun Yang thought proudly, imagining how he would deal with these two fairies after they got married. Blood rushed to his head, his face flushed, and he almost lost control of his impulse, but his eyes could not help glinting with a wolfish gleam. The two ladies, who did not know what was going on, suddenly felt a chill run down their spines. Looking at the wolfish gleam in the fellow's eyes, they could not help feeling angry and embarrassed. Without another word, they joined forces to beat him up again. "You stinky pervert." Pervert indeed. Early in the morning, sect leader Yun, who had been called a stinky pervert and pervert for the entire night, sent his two fiancés home respectfully with a mask on his face. Only then did the two ladies speak no more, calling out to their subordinates without further ado. Ling Xiaozue and Dugu Chou had wanted to bid farewell to Yun Yang, but with Ji Lingxi's command, the troop departed at once. Ling Xiaozue and the rest could only smile bitterly at Yun Yang and follow quickly. Yun Yang's personality has changed quite a bit. Along the way, Shangguan Lingxiu said rather joyfully, "It looks like coming to the bound of universe is a good thing for him." Ji Lingxi nodded and sighed softly. In the Tianxian continent, he carried too many burdens. Now that he's in the bound of universe, he can finally let it go and act according to his heart. I thought that the saying, "It's a waste of youth if one is not frivolous," didn't apply to him. but it looks like it's still a wise saying. Shangguan Lingxiu sighed sympathetically. You're right. He only looks like he's in his 20s now. When he was in Tianxian, he was like a little old man, thinking about this and that. You have no idea how suffocating it was when he appeared in front of me as Supreme Cloud. Sigh, Ji Lingxi teased. Sister Lingxiu, weren't you attracted to Supreme Cloud because of how wise and far-sighted he was back then, like an old man? You were seduced by him just like that. And now you're sighing. Shangguan Lingxiu was embarrassed and said angrily, What about you? How did you get seduced by him? Ji Lingxi was smug. I wasn't seduced by him. Shangguan Lingxiu scoffed. You weren't seduced by him. You came to him on your own accord. You threw yourself at him. Ji Lingxi's embarrassment turned into anger. That's still better than someone. He says that he'll repay the favor with his body, but he's actually overjoyed deep down. The two girls bickered along the way. Soon, they had traveled thousands of miles, but they came to an abrupt halt. Finger guessing. Scissors. Scissors. Rock. You've lost. Ji Lingxi snorted and said, You go if you've lost. Shangguan Lingxiu said gleefully, All right, I'll go then. I'm willing to admit defeat. Look at that horny face of yours. Don't mess things up. Ji Lingxi said sourly, You really have to be more careful. Don't let him find out that you're going to be eaten up while you're trying to protect him. I don't need you to tell me that. As Shangguan Lingxiu spoke, she had already drifted thousands of feet away, rushing back at lightning speed. She could not wait any longer. Humph. Let's go. Ji Lingxi snorted in annoyance. It was because she did not want a certain someone to be too complacent that she had said that whoever lost the finger-guessing game would go back to protect the rascal. Who would have thought that she would actually win? How disappointing. Ji Lingxi and the others left. It was Xueqi, Luo Dejiang, Kong Luoyue, and the others' turn. Their gazes towards Yunyang were filled with resentment. There should be a limit to your preference for a lover over a friend. It was too obvious at a time and place like this. All of you have families. Can't you empathize with the desire of a single person to have a family? Yunyang reprimanded them directly. Why are all of you pulling such a long face? Come, come, this lord has brought something good this time. You guys can take advantage of it. The group perked up at once and gathered around him. These are all good stuff that can improve one's cultivation base. Yunyang gave each of them a portion. I urgently need all of you to make the best use of your time and improve your cultivation base. I think the war is not far away. Xueqi and the others were shocked. The war between the bound of universe and the demon race? How could that be? Yunyang nodded deeply. Why not? It should be within these few years. As soon as Yunyang said this, Xueqi and the others felt their hearts sink. The war with the demon race was the ultimate cultivation goal of every martial artist in the bound of universe. Everyone dreamed of going to the battlefield to slay the demon race and make a name for themselves. Many prominent families and sects had built their foundations for tens of thousands of years through the war with the demon race. However, everyone had a clearer understanding of the degree of danger involved in the war with the demon race. It was also daunting. 10,000 people went to the battlefield, and it would be considered good if only a dozen or so could survive in the end. Someone had once said that the Bloody Soul Mountain was 100,000 feet high, and it was all piled up with the bones of heroes. To the survivors who had participated in the Battle of the Bloody Soul Mountain, this was not an exaggeration at all. After hundreds of thousands of years of war between the human race and the demon race in the bound of universe, the lives of hundreds of millions of cultivators had been sacrificed. These 2 rings are my recent gains. Yunyang took out 2 rings and handed them to Xueqi solemnly. No matter what, we can't lose them. As long as we bring them back, the residents of 9 Supremes' cultivation needs for the next 3,000 years will no longer be in doubt. Xueqi was shocked when he heard that, his hand trembling as he took the rings. Xueqi's cultivation base was now a second-grade Supreme Saint. Whether it was his eyesight or experience, they were all extraordinary. The scale of the residents of 9 Supremes was also growing larger and larger. From top to bottom, there were almost 20,000 people. It was almost double the number compared to when Yunyang left. However, Yunyang already knew the number, and the resources that could sustain the cultivation of over 20,000 people for 3,000 years. How much wealth would that be? These resources must be safely delivered to Chen Duo. He will make proper use of them. Don't worry. Xueqi put away the 2 rings solemnly. Even if all of us die, these 2 rings will return safely. Yunyang rolled his eyes. What are you talking about? Do you need to risk your lives for a mere treasure? The first thing you need to do is to return safely. With me here, the possibility of you being intercepted and killed on the way is not high. The 3 heavenly palaces may even lend you a helping hand. But you still need to be careful of accidents. Then, Yunyang met with the 30 to 40 disciples who had followed him here and gave each of them some quality resources. When we return, everyone must still do your best to cultivate and improve your cultivation base to the highest limit. Yunyang took a deep breath and said, I won't say much else. Everyone, please remember. When the war comes, try your best to improve your ability to the 3rd grade Supreme Saint. Otherwise, when you go to the battlefield, you will only be cannon fodder. Annihilated in an instant. This is not a lie. As he spoke, he turned to Xueqi and said, Now is the critical moment. Don't be stingy with the consumption of resources. Even if you have to use resources, you must increase the strength of these little fellows. I believe that after this meeting, you have learned the importance of cultivation base and strength, haven't you? Xueqi took a deep breath and said, Don't worry. He was at least a 3rd grade Supreme Saint. Upon hearing that he had just advanced to the Saint Emperor realm, the few eldest disciples who were still complacent now had bitter expressions on their faces. Master, you said that advancing one's cultivation base is as easy as cabbages. How can it be so easy? The eyes of Yun Xueqi, Hu Xiaofan, and Bai Yexing flickered. They would cultivate harder when they went back, and even if it meant risking their lives, they would improve their cultivation base and never become cannon fodder. Yun Xueqi rolled her pretty big eyes as she looked at her junior brothers and made up her mind. I must be faster than them. I'll go into seclusion as soon as I return to the sect. How can a 3rd grade Supreme Saint be my goal? I want to break through to the level of a Saint Emperor. When Master goes back, I'll go to him every day and cry. No matter what, I can get more resources from him. Humph. Well, all of you can go back now. When I'm done with my business, I'll go back as soon as possible. Xueqi hesitated for a moment and said, There's still the matter of Phoenix Cry sect. Now, the people of Phoenix Cry sect are wavering. Perhaps they have the intention to join the residents of 9 Supremes. Yunyang immediately thought of the line he had laid out. He could not help but smile and said, There's no hurry. Let's talk about this when I go back. All right. Xueqi and the others stayed for one more day. At night, they quietly left to Night City. Take care, boss. Don't worry. Chapter 1376. After a day and a night, many of them felt as if time had dragged on like a year. The 12 chosen saints, who had always been graceful and magnanimous in front of others, wore grim expressions as they held an emergency meeting in their respective residences. Everyone was displeased that such a huge mistake had been made in the case against Yunyang. Other than that, the Sacred Heart Palace's Lei Qianli was also plotting something. In the secret chamber, 3 people were gathered together. One of them was Lei Qianli. Now that things have come to this, how should we end it? Lei Qianli's face was dark, filled with worry. This matter had also exceeded his expectations. Who would have thought that there would suddenly be 2 such powerful women? With these 2 women by Yunyang's side, it was absolutely impossible to kill him. It's all right. The person beside him had a lean face, 3 locks of long beard fluttering in front of his chest. Although he was sitting, he still looked tall and straight, exuding an indescribable elegance. If Yunyang were here and saw this person with his own eyes, he would definitely be shocked, perhaps even scared out of his wits. This was because this person had the appearance of the Phoenix Emperor. He said faintly, From your description, we can basically tell that these 2 women are the descendants of peerless experts. Their counterforce isn't because of their own abilities, it's only because of the protective aura that their elders have bestowed upon them. This can already be proven by the fact that they didn't attack directly to kill all of you. Yunyang has reappeared in the world this time and acted in such a high-profile manner. It's obvious that he's here for a reason. Leaving these 2 women here will instead add to both parties' worries. It's hard for us to do anything, but Yunyang himself won't be able to do much either. Therefore, these 2 women will definitely leave after this. Even if they don't want to leave, Yun Yang will think of a way to make them leave. Lei Qianli and the other person who was hidden in a cloud of smoke nodded slowly. Once these two women leave, the chosen saints will strike again. Because of these two women, their desire to kill Yun Yang will only grow stronger. What we need to do is much simpler. We only need to deliver a fatal blow at the most critical moment. When the time comes, you'll be the one to take action. The person who had the face of the Phoenix Emperor looked at the person in the cloud of smoke. He paused for a moment, then said, "However, you must not be too hasty. You must only attack when you are completely confident. You must ensure that your attack will hit." The person in the smoke said in a strange voice, "Understood. What if he can't force Yun Yang to that extent?" Lei Qianli asked worriedly, "I've observed Yun Yang's decisiveness in killing, and his cultivation base has obviously surpassed the level of a third-grade saint monarch. Can the actions of those sons of saint force him to the point of desperation?" That person said indifferently, "If we can't reach that point, then we won't make a move. We would rather miss this opportunity. Trust my judgment. If it's not to that extent, then even if we make a move, it'll be useless. We definitely won't be able to kill him. However, I believe that the chosen won't be willing to let this matter rest. Once they miss this opportunity to kill Yun Yang, they will surely have a follow-up move. The only thing we need to worry about now is you, Great Elder Lei. Your position will be very awkward from now on." Lei Qianli smiled bitterly. "Has it come to the point where I need to end things?" "It has, and it's to the point where you'll die if you don't end things." Lei Qianli sighed. After a long time he said fiercely, "Very well." Yun Yang sat cross-legged in his room. At this moment, he was the only guest in this enormous inn that could accommodate thousands of people. Before Ji Lingxi left, she had booked the entire inn for a whole month. Yun Yang's deific consciousness filled the entire space of the inn, monitoring everything within a few thousand feet radius. He did not probe further because there was no need to. Xueqi and the others had been gone for half a day. At this moment, the sun was gradually moving towards the west. As the sun set, the first light of dawn was about to fade, but there was still no movement in the surroundings. "Looks like I still need some time to prepare. Their previous losses have hurt them badly, and they're going to be weak after this." Yun Yang pondered. If it's not that they're going to be weak after this, then they're worried? I really don't know what else they have to be cautious about. Lingxi and Lingxiu have already left. I believe they've already found out about their whereabouts. Or perhaps, they're going to send out their half-saint experts in order to achieve their goal without any more mistakes? Yun Yang raised his head to look at the sky, full of doubts. Where was Dongfang Haoren? What was he doing? As he pondered, a sudden warning flashed in his mind. Without a second thought, Yun Yang had already gone to the top of the inn. As the saber light shone brightly, he had already soared thousands of feet into the air. The saber light shimmered like a rainbow across the sky, but it was also like the clearest route that marked Yun Yang's direction. However, when the saber light ended, Yun Yang's silhouette had already disappeared. 3 silhouettes landed at the spot where Yun Yang had been standing. Their eyes were fixed on the saber light that was still flickering in the air, and their expressions were unusually ugly. How presumptuous! Yun Yang had boldly left, but he had left his direction of departure. To these people who had come to ambush him, it was undoubtedly a great provocation. "I'm right here. Come and kill me if you're so capable." The 3 of them snorted coldly and gave chase. Along the way, the 3 of them whispered to each other through deific consciousness. "Brother Lu, we're pursuing Supreme Cloud so brazenly. Our palace lords will definitely know about it later. I'm afraid this matter won't be easy to resolve." One of them transmitted his voice to the other. Clearly, he was filled with apprehension and hoped to receive some consolation. "Is there something wrong with your brain?" Another person transmitted his voice in a cold and stern manner. "Why?" The cold Brother Lu spoke faintly. "You can't be thinking that the lords of the 3 heavenly palaces are idiots, can you?" The person who had spoken earlier was even more confused. "Forgive this young brother's ignorance. Please speak frankly, Brother Lu." As Brother Lu flew forward, he said, "So you're the one who's really stupid." This time, he did not wait for the other to speak, continuing on his own accord. He had already confirmed that the person who had asked this question, his longtime friend, was actually too dumb. The situation is clear now. Not only do the palace lords know about our current actions, but I believe that the three palace lords have been aware of the Sons of Holy Lands coming out to deal with Supreme Cloud since the beginning. To a certain extent, this incident was caused by the three palace lords' connivance. Ha! You still don't understand? Use that wooden head of yours and think hard. Think about the entire sequence of events. If the palace lords didn't connive or even incite the Sons of Holy Lands to do this, but instead changed it to a celestial palace confinement order and ordered those outside to return immediately, wouldn't all the hidden dangers that could threaten Supreme Cloud's safety be resolved? If not, why would all the Sons of Holy Lands of the three heavenly palaces appear at the same place at such a time? Or are there no restrictions at all? Each of the Sons of Holy Lands is surrounded by experts. Who can win against such manpower? The person who had spoken earlier was utterly confused. Ha! Is that so? The masterminds behind Supreme Cloud this time are actually the three palace lords? This. The person's mind was in a state of chaos. At that moment, even his thoughts seemed to have frozen. He was completely dumbfounded. If it weren't for the palace lord's connivance, how could the Sons of Holy Lands have such a huge responsibility to act so brazenly? Although everyone had found an excuse to deceive the world in dealing with Supreme Cloud this time, which one of the excuses they had found was tenable? They're all extremely lame excuses. Up to this point, they've openly carried out the assassination. Anyone who isn't stupid would know very well that the Sons of Holy Lands want to kill Supreme Cloud, the continent's hero. If you still don't understand what I've said, then there's no need for you to understand. Brother Lu's gaze was cold. The person who had spoken earlier gradually slowed down, obviously putting most of his thoughts on the matter. After a while, he scratched his head and smiled bitterly. I still don't understand the root of this. Why is it like this? Brother Lu heaved a long sigh. Looking at this old friend of his, a sense of helplessness rose within him. If it weren't for the fact that they were old friends, he would have kicked him in the head, cracked it open, and poured a ball of cold water into his head to wake him up. And now, the great war between humans and demons is imminent. As the highest leaders of the three great palace lords, they must personally participate in the war. Going back to tens of thousands of years ago, when the Great War was approaching, the three great heavenly palaces had to take over the reins of power. Because the three palace lords' fate is uncertain this time, the danger is unpredictable, and there's no guarantee that they can escape unscathed. However, the foundations of the three palaces cannot be destroyed. Therefore, when the palace lords participate in the battle, it's the time when the new palace lord takes office. If the palace lord dies in the battle, the new palace lord will conveniently take over the palace. If the palace lord returns safely, the new palace lord will take a step back and become a vice palace lord, still the palace lord's successor. However, under normal circumstances, any palace lord who has participated in the battle will not linger on the position even if he returns safely. Almost all of them will step down directly and choose to live the life they want. Therefore, from the day the new palace lord takes over as the substitute palace lord, he is already the real palace lord of the heavenly palace. And now, there are 4 saints in each of the 3 palaces. Although the supreme heavenly pavilion selection is imminent, if someone is selected, even if the other 3 are verbally convinced, they may not be convinced in their hearts. And at this time, the 3 palaces will have to carry out an internal cleansing, or in other words, to pave the way for the new palace lord. Brother Lu said coldly, and you and I, including all the people who came out with the saints, are the targets of the cleansing. Targets of cleansing? How did we become targets of cleansing? I didn't do anything out of line, did I? What are you doing? What else do you want? Now, you're even helping the saint to attack the Shenhuang hero. Isn't that enough? I think I understand more or less. I'm now a henchman of the saint. If he doesn't get better, I'll also be finished with him? That's more or less what I mean. Speaking of which, the saints originally had a period of peace. At least, if they really wanted to develop into an internal strife, they would have to wait until the great battle begins. Only then, when the palace lords are busy with the demon race, will the saints fight it out with each other. The winner takes all. Because before that, the saints don't dare to act rashly. Only when the 3 palace lords are occupied would the holy sons dare to attack each other. And when they really go to that period, it's often the time when a new palace lord is born. The 3 palace lords are definitely not happy to see such a situation happen, but the emergence of a new palace lord is inevitable. The winner takes all. Only the survival of the fittest can maximize the power of the palace lord's successor. The new palace lord must have considerable means and tactics, which is why undercurrents are inevitable when the palace lord is replaced. And now, all the conflicts have surfaced because of the emergence of a huge variable. Based on Yun Yang's contributions to the human race, even if he gets the position of Xuanhuang's supreme cloud, it's understandable. But the crux of the problem is that he's suddenly promoted to the top of the Xianhuang continent's younger generation. Yun Yang, who has gone to this position, is bound to replace the position of any palace lord as long as the selection begins in Supreme Heaven Pavilion. And this result is not what any saint would like to see. It's because of this that the conflict that originally only existed among the saints has been intensified in advance, and the spearhead is all pointed at Yun Yang. Every sky palace has 4 holy sons. Ever since the holy sons were determined to be holy sons, every holy son has gathered a group of personal supporters, just like you and me. And every time there's a change of power, there must be a large number of people who will be purged. If our masters are defeated in this battle, then you and I will be the ones who will be purged. In this process of purging, everyone is equal. Anyone can be purged, but anyone can also have a meteoric rise, hold power, and be at the top for tens of thousands of years. What the saints pursue is power, to ascend to the throne of the pinnacle. As for the position of the saints, it has nothing to do with power. It's more about the direction of authority. Then, in the true sense of the word, who holds the power? It's in the hands of their followers. Do you know why the lords of the 3 heavenly palaces can be so righteous and open? It's because after they ascend to the position of the lords, they don't need to resort to underhanded tricks anymore. Everything can be solved in a righteous and honorable way. After tens of thousands of years of accumulation, it's a very difficult thing to not be righteous. When Brother Lu spoke of these things, his expression was cold and his tone was even colder, as if he was talking about someone else. Do you know where the masters of those families that have been passed down for tens of thousands of years or even tens of thousands of years come from? They all have one or a few true rulers of the 3 heavenly palaces above them. Do you understand now? This is the real purpose of this incident. Although the saints have their own plans, their followers have their own plans as well. In the end, it's all in one sentence. Once you've boarded the boat, you can't get off. Since you've already chosen a side, you have to continue to the end. You can't give up. Giving up is equivalent to suicide. This time, the action against Yun Yang is equivalent to a pre-selection rehearsal. Victory and defeat will be decided this time. Once the outcome is clear, the possibility of an unforeseen event in the future will be very small. I think the 3 palace lords are happy to see the current change. With the intervention of an external force like Supreme Cloud, the 3 heavenly palaces will be able to retain more of their forces. However, it also means that this operation will continue. The person beside him was confused by what he was hearing. His face was filled with confusion, as if he understood what Zhang Xian was trying to say. I still don't understand. Are these your guesses or is it true? Why do I feel that it's more and more unfathomable the more I listen? Sigh. Brother Lu. On one hand, Brother Lu was speechlessly frustrated and exasperated at Yun Yang's failure to live up to his expectations. On the other hand, he was bored during the process of pursuing Yun Yang. After all, he could face the pressure of life and death at any time in the future. He could use this opportunity to vent his frustrations. He explained patiently, "What I'm saying isn't speculation. Think about it carefully. If the loser dies in Yun Yang's hands this time, there won't be any direct enmity with the supporters of the other saints. In this case, although these people are fated to not be placed in an important position by the successor saints due to their standpoint and power, they won't be oppressed or targeted. At least, their identity as pinnacle cultivators will still be of great value. If it's not necessary, the successor palace lords won't cut off their own combat power. Isn't that right?" Brother Lu, who had been asking questions, still did not quite understand. But what does this have to do with Supreme Cloud? The more I listen, the more I feel that Supreme Cloud is actually being wronged. It's an undeserved calamity that befalls him out of the blue. Brother Lu snorted and said, "Everything in this world has its pros and cons. There's no such thing as having no pros and no cons. There's no such thing as a good opportunity when it comes to danger. Supreme Cloud has encountered an inexplicable calamity, but there are still benefits to be gained. Firstly, He's being hunted down by so many people. If he doesn't die, he'll definitely become a prominent figure in this world. Secondly, the East Celestial Palace has spent so many resources on him back then. It's already a form of compensation. Thirdly, I guess the masters of the 3 celestial palaces must have made another promise to Yun Yang. These 3 points alone are already great benefits for Supreme Cloud. Not to mention, there's also his identity as the Bound of Universe's hero, the continent's unrivaled expert. Isn't that enough? Innocent? How is he innocent? With great power comes great responsibility. It's never an empty saying. However, if Supreme Cloud really dies in the hands of our successor saints this time, what will happen? What will happen? What else can we say? Whoever killed Supreme Cloud would have a celestial palace in their hands. As for the title, who can prove that Supreme Cloud died in the hands of that person? Supreme Cloud is obviously the target that the masters of the celestial palaces have pushed out. What does such a person represent? It represents ability. Being able to kill him is even more proof of one's ability. Who else can we give the position of Palace Master to if not him? Don't treat this as a battle to ambush the continent's hero. That will have a huge negative impact on your state of mind. Just treat it as a battle of elimination. The so-called Bound of Universe's hero is a new legend. Once he dies, he's still impermanent. Isn't this the end of the legend? Yun Yang has already ascended to the position of Supreme Cloud. Falling suddenly when he's at the pinnacle of this world isn't necessarily a stroke of luck. Brother Lu smiled faintly. Of course, this battle of elimination may also be a battle of ascension for Supreme Cloud. No matter who wins or loses in the end, there are benefits to be had. It's precisely because the successor saints understand this that they're so fearless. The so-called gathering, the masks, the real and the fake, the battle, and so on are all just smokescreens for the world to see. He chuckled coldly. There's no reason in this world. Everything depends on whose fist is bigger. Brother Lu said, do you think Supreme Cloud himself knows the cause and effect of all these things? If Supreme Cloud doesn't know, or is unwilling to cooperate, who knows where he'd be long gone by now? Why would he still linger here to attract our attention? What he's doing now is openly baiting us to kill him. Brother Lu sneered. Brother Lu, if you can survive in the future, why don't you go directly to your Northern Wasteland Demon Palace's war hall and become a hallmaster? Just focus on fighting, don't worry about anything else. Just be a blade. With your brain, you're really not suited to participate in this kind of inheritance war. He rolled his eyes and said, you're full of suspicions about this fight for the throne. What makes me even more curious is that with a brain like yours, how did you get involved in the battle of successor saints? This is a highly intelligent speculation. How is it something you can play in? Brother Lu's face grew redder as he growled in a low voice. Shut up. Am I that bad? He sped up and left. In his heart, however, he was thinking, it's so *king complicated. When that bastard he old third came looking for me back then, I shouldn't have agreed to it without thinking. Now, it looks like this isn't something an honest person like me can play with. Brother Lu thought about it along the way. The more he thought about it, the more confused he became. After so many years, he had actually been used as a tool by others. He then thought about how he had to be lectured along the way when he came to kill a continental hero. Also, what did it mean to not treat him as a continental hero? What should he treat him as? The more he thought about it, the more he felt that his brain wasn't working well enough. But he was clearly the hero of the entire Bound of Universe. Such an unparalleled hero rarely appeared in the world even in billions of years. He had escaped from the demon race by a hair's breadth. Was he going to die by his own saber in the end? If his saber was really stained with the blood of this hero, how could his conscience be at peace for the rest of his life? Even if he held great power in another dynasty and ruled over the Bound of Universe. But Brother Lu's mind kept spinning, and he became more and more perplexed. All these twists and turns, so many goals, so many schemes. Although this old man has always prided himself on my cultivation base that has reached the pinnacle of this world, when it comes to the craftiness of the human heart, who can I scheme against? Brother Lu is right. With a brain like mine, I should go into battle and focus on improving my cultivation. I shouldn't waste my time and effort on schemes. Even if I win in the schemes of others, with my brain, it's hard for me to get anything good. Even if I do get something good, it's hard for me to put it to good use. No wonder my dead wife always said I was stupid when she was alive. At that time, I argued every day, saying that I wasn't stupid and that I was very smart. How could a stupid person reach the pinnacle of cultivation base? Now that I think about it, my dead wife was right. Finding her as my wife was the only thing that enlightened me in this life. Since she died, this old man has never made any decisions for himself in this half of his life. I've always been at the mercy of others. That damned old hag. Why did you die so early? Why didn't you wait for me to be reincarnated? As he thought about it, he recalled the days he had spent with his deceased wife. Brother Lu's eyes grew misty. As they sped along, a huge mountain suddenly appeared in front of them. This huge mountain was completely different from the mountains they had seen before. As far as the eye could see, it looked like a barren mountain, barren without any greenery. However, upon closer inspection, one would notice that this mountain was faintly emitting a rainbow glow. The hidden elegance was like a celestial mountain that had suddenly fallen to the mortal world, filled with beautiful, fantastical colors. As their vision fell on this strange mountain, the expressions of the other two people besides Brother Lu changed. What's going on? It turned out that there was no such mountain here. Then where did this mountain in front of them come from? Could it really have fallen from the sky? The two of them couldn't help but wonder. No matter what, the sudden appearance of a mountain here was a huge miracle. There had to be something strange about it. The two of them hesitated for a moment and slowed down at the same time. Brother Lu, on the other hand, was still immersed in his own conflicting thoughts. If I really meet that hero of the continent, should I kill him or not? What happens after I kill him? What if I don't kill him? Along the way, his mind was muddled, his thoughts less than 1,000th of his usual level. Naturally, he did not notice the anomaly in front of him, nor did he realize that his two companions had stopped. He continued to fly forward with his head lowered. Yun Yang flew 7,000 miles, the dazzling saber light hanging in the air like a rainbow for a long time. It was a spectacular sight to behold. At the end of the saber light was a mountain of various strange metals that was tens of thousands of feet tall. This mountain that seemed to have appeared out of thin air was created by Yun Yang himself. At this moment, he was standing on the peak of this mountain, looking at the three silhouettes that were speeding towards him like meteors. 3 people. With 2 sabers and 1 sword, the 3 saint monarchs came together in a triangular formation. Yun Yang unsheathed his saber, his gaze cold and sharp without the slightest hint of fear. Seeing the approaching people, he sucked in a deep breath, prepared to deal a fatal blow with his first strike. As he breathed in deeply, the abundant mystical qi accumulated in his body surged like the waves of the sea, surging up from his dantian. The divine edge in his hand trembled and hummed as it was infused with mystical qi. It was unusually pleasant to the ears, as if it was yearning for the start of the battle. Then, Yun Yang's eyes narrowed. Out of the 3 people who were chasing after them, 2 of them had stopped for some reason, while the other person maintained his original speed and rushed over like a rocket. The person was getting closer and closer. Yun Yang, who was about to deliver the killing blow, was shocked to find that the fellow's face was filled with confusion. It was as if he was in a dream, as if he was sleepwalking in the world. Yun Yang could not help but be puzzled by the scene. What was this phenomenon? What kind of explanation was this? The other party's malicious thoughts had long been planted in Yun Yang's heart. Watching the other approach, Yun Yang stood still, the saber in his hand raised slightly, ready to strike. In the blink of an eye, the person was already close to Yun Yang. The moment the cultivator's self-defense instinct was awakened, he realized that Yun Yang was already within reach, staring at him with an icy gaze. The saber in his hand was even ready to strike. Brother Lu's reaction was still unusual as he suddenly cried out, "How can he be so fast?" He actually did a somersault, and then his feet moved repeatedly, and he rose several tens of feet in the air. His body turned quickly, and the saber that was condensed with all of his Shen Qi spun around his body at lightning speed, and then he put the saber back into the sheath. Yun Yang's long-awaited strike was about to be unleashed, taking down one of the enemies according to his plan, and ensuring that the initiative of the battle was in his hands. However, he was shocked to see the newcomer's expression as if he had seen a ghost. Yun Yang was also impressed by the other party's exquisite movement and reflexes, which was the best he had ever encountered. Then, he was puzzled as to why the other party had kept his saber away after he had shaken off Yun Yang's attack. Was he not afraid that Yun Yang would pursue him and kill him? Even with Yun Yang's brain, he could not help but feel bewildered. What was he trying to do? Chapter 1377. It was because of this that the saber, which was like an arrow on a bowstring, did not strike. The eyes of the two men behind nearly fell out of their sockets as they witnessed the scene. They all knew that Brother Lu was not mentally sound, but his cultivation base was already at the pinnacle. He was indeed the strongest among the three of them and was also the main force in this ambush on Yunyang. However, was it really appropriate for him to act so recklessly and alone? Was that not seeking death? They could even imagine the scene of Brother Lu continuing to charge forward blindly and being killed by Yunyang with a single slash. When pinnacle cultivators fought, a single misstep could lead to death. Yunyang also had many achievements in killing the souls of his enemies. Both sides were on completely different sides. Once he had the upper hand, there was no way he would show mercy. Therefore, Brother Lu's death was almost certain. The two of them should have fallen back a little, considering whether they should retreat as soon as possible. In spite of this, the other two men were dumbfounded by what they saw. Brother Lu seemed to have recovered his senses just as he was about to come into contact with Yunyang. He reacted swiftly and escaped from the range of Yunyang's saber's murderous aura with a miraculous movement skill. While the two men were secretly impressed, they were even more doubtful. With Yunyang's achievements and the mountain that he had purposely built, it was only natural that he had been waiting for this moment. Brother Lu had fallen into a trap of death. Even if he had a pinnacle cultivation base and a miraculous movement skill, it was impossible for him to escape. Had Brother Lu's idiocy dragged Yunyang down with him? After that, both of them were even more shocked. Lu had actually sheathed the saber in his hand and looked at Yunyang from the air, then up at the sky, before turning back to look at the two men behind him. His expression was one of inexplicable confusion. It was a shocking sight to behold. Not only were the two men surprised, but Yunyang was also doubtful. With a slight frown, he pointed his saber at Brother Lu and hollered, "Since you're here, what are you playing tricks for? Come down and fight." Brother Lu's expression was complicated as he murmured, "The blade is sharp, but if it's stained with the blood of a hero, won't its edge be covered in dust?" His tone was lost, but it seemed to be implying something. Yunyang's heart skipped a beat as he sneered, "You're already here, what blood of a hero? No matter how much you've done for mankind, how can it compare to your selfish schemes and greed? Come on, don't spout nonsense over there and pretend. Your so-called conscience no longer belongs to you." Brother Lu's face alternated between red and white. The two people behind him roared, "Lu Yong is here! What are you doing?" This despicable fellow's luck was off the charts. He had been on the brink of death just now, but he had managed to escape from the hopeless situation. Yunyang had never been merciful, so why had he shown mercy to this fellow? No matter what, this fellow was still the strongest among the three of them. With him around, the plan could still work, especially when he had inadvertently attracted a significant portion of Yunyang's attention while he was muddle-headed, allowing the other two to launch a sneak attack. However, just as the two of them were about to move, they realized that a certain spot had coincidentally blocked their path of attack. It was impossible for the two of them to launch a sneak attack together. This was simply outrageous. Lu Yong's face twisted for a long time, then he suddenly let out a long sigh. "Brother Lu is right. I want to be an ordinary cultivator from the bottom of my heart. I don't want to stain my hands with the blood of heroes. This kind of power struggle, this kind of shady business that goes against my conscience, this old man can't do it. I won't do it anymore." Suddenly, with a long howl, he shot up into the sky, turning into a ray of light in the air. "This old man is going to the Blood Soul Mountain now, for the rest of my life. Do whatever you want here, Supreme Cloud. Take care." With a swoosh, his figure disappeared. Yunyang was stunned by the sudden turn of events, while the other two lords were about to spit blood from anger. Brother Lu roared in anger, "Lu Yongzai! What the F***ck are you doing? Come back quickly." Lu Yongzai's figure had completely disappeared, only his voice could be heard from afar. "My saber will never spill the blood of heroes, my hands will never stain the souls of the innocent. This old man gives up on this fight. This old man also gives up on anything related to the Son of Saint. The rest of my life will be spent on the Blood Soul Mountain." His voice grew fainter and fainter, finally disappearing completely. When the two of them heard this, they were dumbfounded. A strong urge to vomit blood surged in their hearts again and again. At this moment, they really wanted to spit blood. F***CKU. UF asterisk king. That brother Lu flew into a rage. This blockhead really pissed me off. Seeing that he was like an idiot who didn't understand this and that. I explained it to him and enlightened him at the same time. Who would have thought that this enlightenment would actually lead him to leave? It's fine if you leave, but the three of us have to work together to come up with a strategy. You're the F asterisk king strongest among the three of us, alright? Your departure is not as simple as losing a link, it's equivalent to directly tricking the two of us, tricking us to death. I haven't done many good things in my F asterisk king life. I've only spoken a few words of advice today, but who would have thought that my advice would have such an amazing effect? I've directly persuaded him to leave. But such a F asterisk king result, I've directly sent myself to my death. I shouldn't have practiced martial arts, I should have gone and taught disciples. I should have gone and become a teacher. What a F asterisk king dog. Looking at the ray of light in the distance, he felt as if his entire chest was blocked, and a stifling feeling was stuck in his throat. He couldn't spit it out, and he couldn't swallow it either. The other person was also dumbfounded, and he didn't know what to do. He stared at Brother Lu. Brother Lu. What did you say to him? What did Brother Lu say? Lu Yongzai left just like that? Lu, what have you done? The other person exploded. Are you two trying to trick me to death? I didn't say anything. Brother Lu felt that he was completely dumbfounded. He hurriedly explained the situation to Brother Lu through telepathy, and said speechlessly, I didn't expect that a few F asterisk king words would actually enlighten him. F asterisk king hell, he just left. Brother Lu wanted to cry but no tears came out. Brother Lu. What's going on? I'm F asterisk king curious. How can there be such a person in the Northern Wilderness Devil Palace? How can this kind of person participate in the fight for the throne? F asterisk CK. This is going to be my death. He looked at Brother Lu with endless resentment. Couldn't you have gone and enlightened him at any time? Why did you have to do it now? F asterisk king hell. Brother Lu's hands were numb, and his face was ashen. This old man is also... Finally, he could not hold back the frustration in his heart and spat out a mouthful of blood. Only then did he feel a little better in his chest. I'm so angry. Looking at Yun Yang standing in front of him with his saber, the other Saint Lord was uncertain. Then what do we do now, fight or fight? How could he possibly defeat him? On the contrary, Brother Lu was no longer conflicted. It was impossible to fight. Yun Yang had the battle record of defeating 12 third-level Saint Lords in a row. His combat strength was so strong that he was not only invincible among Saint Lords of the same level, but he was also invincible among Saint Lords. The triangular formation that they relied on to defeat the enemy had yet to be deployed, but one of them had already left without fighting, and it was the strongest of the three. According to the plan, each of the three holy sons would send one person to fight the enemy with the three ultimate arts of the three heavenly palaces, complementing each other's weaknesses. After a day and a night of painstaking practice, it was a special formation that was specially designed to counter Yun Yang's superb saber technique. Yun Yang's saber technique was incomparably exquisite. It was almost impossible to fight him in this aspect. Therefore, they planned to use defense as offense, each displaying their strengths and complementing each other's weaknesses with the formation's movements. With the three of them working together, they would wear Yun Yang down. After a day and night of training together, the three of them had already familiarized themselves with this kind of combat technique. Their combined power had almost doubled. Now, they had lost a corner before the battle had even begun. How could they fight? It would not end well for them. Yun Yang had faced a group of third-level Saint Lords alone the day before yesterday, taking them down with a few slashes each time, and the two of them were only third-level Saint Lords. If the two of them worked together, the possibility of being killed by Yun Yang was more than 90%, even if it was not certain that they would die. The best outcome was that one of them would die while the other would be heavily injured and escape. That was all. However, the two of them were not old friends, and their friendship was very limited. Would they be willing to risk their lives to create a chance of survival for the other? If they did not fight, would there be a chance to escape? At this moment, the two of them felt like they were being cooked. They looked at each other and saw each other's constipated expression. Yun Yang was puzzled. What was wrong with these two? Coming here, they could not stop fighting, but they were also giving each other meaningful looks? What were they doing? Could it be that they were old and wanted to have a twilight romance? After a while, Yun Yang could not help but holler, "Men, come forward to accept your death." The two men looked at each other, and Brother Lu suddenly heaved a long sigh. "My saber has never been stained with the blood of a hero." Brother Lu sighed. "Supreme Cloud, take care. This old man is going to the Bloody Soul Mountain now. The rest of my life is dedicated to the Bloody Soul Mountain." Before his voice echoed in the air, he turned into a beam of light and sped away. "As long as King Lu Yong is here, I won't be able to beat the sh*t out of you even if I catch up to you." However, this departure was equivalent to giving up everything. Sigh. It was still better than dying. The other person was dumbfounded once again. F***ck your mothers. This F***king pockmarked was not pockmarked but deceitful. Deceitful. I've never seen such a deceitful person. However, wasn't this the path to survival? There were already two of them, why couldn't they do the same? If I'm the only one left, I'll definitely die. Then he heaved a long sigh. "Supreme Cloud, I'm afraid there will be more half-saints coming to deal with you in the future. The three of us are just scouts, but this isn't the end of our skills. This old man has stopped this time not because of anything else, but because I don't want to bury my Taoist heart. I'll head to the Bloody Soul Mountain now and do my part for the human race. Take care of yourself. This old man is very ashamed that I can't do anything for you." As he spoke, he cupped his fists, his face filled with righteousness and a tinge of shame. "The mountains are high and the rivers are long. We'll never meet again." Before his words echoed in the air, he turned into a shooting star and sped towards the southern sky. This time, Yun Yang was completely clueless as to what was happening before him. At this moment, he was thrown into disarray by the wind. What exactly was going on? He lowered his head to look at where he was standing and the mountain he had created with his own hands. He then felt the various vicious traps that he had set up a few days ago, the secret tactics to defeat the enemy. Was I being stood up? I've spent so much effort to prepare for this battle, but in the end, I'm only standing here? Not even a single slash? If I were to lure other enemies here in the future, wouldn't I be telling them that there was something wrong with this mountain? Otherwise, why would you be so eager to bring him here? I didn't expect there to be such a righteous person in the camp of the Holy Sons. I've thought too darkly of a person's heart. No matter what, Yun Yang still felt a sense of comfort in his heart. Forget it, let them go. He stood up solemnly and turned to give a deep bow towards the distance. "Thank you, all three of you. I, Yun Yang, am deeply grateful for your heroism. May you have a safe journey to the Bloody Soul Mountain." His voice traveled far away. The person who was walking at the back could still hear it and staggered, almost falling from the sky. He really wanted to say, "Supreme Cloud, you've misunderstood, you've really misunderstood." However, he did not say anything in the end, only speeding up. "Sigh, I've said I'm going to the Bloody Soul Mountain, so I'll really go there and fight the demons for the rest of my life. I can't go back to the Holy Sons anyway." As he pondered, he did not slow down at all and gradually disappeared into the distance. Yun Yang's words were pretty, as if he had turned enemies into friends with the three who had left. In fact, he had thought about it for a long time and still could not figure out what was going on. Everything else aside, the murderous aura that the three of them exuded when they came from afar could not be faked. They were definitely here to kill him. Moreover, the three of them had roared at each other in exasperation. Based on Yun Yang's estimation of the trio's cultivation base, they were all at the pinnacle of third-level Holy Emperor. Each of their combat power would not pale in comparison to the Supreme Clouds he had fought earlier. Among them, Brother Lu, whom he had interacted with for a brief moment, was the strongest. Whether it was his cultivation base, his saber skill or movement skill, his combat power was bound to be superior to his peers. Yun Yang knew that he could easily defeat him one-on-one, and it would not be difficult to defeat him one-on-two. However, he would have to expend some cultivation method to fight against three. If the other party had some combined skills, they could still cause additional interference to him, which meant that his advantage was not absolute. Of course, this was not taking into account the many external tricks that Yun Yang had prepared to build the mountain. Defeating the enemy and winning was all within his grasp. Why did the other party suddenly repent the moment he saw him? Why was it so sudden? Regardless, it was better to repent than to be stubborn. It was best to avoid such an internal strife among the human race if possible. It was definitely not a bad thing for the other party to head to the Bloody Soul Mountain. After all, the final battle between the human and the demon race was not far away. It was more beneficial than detrimental to let the pinnacle holy monarchs get used to fighting the demon race earlier. Thinking of this, Yun Yang did not ponder further. However, how could he still make use of the many traps here? He began to ponder this question instead. Ever since he had embarked on this path, Yun Yang had planned his every step carefully. Along the way, not just this mountain, he had left countless traps that were beneficial to him. He was even more aware that there might not even be 30% of the traps that could be of use to him. Most of the rest would be wasted. However, he was not afraid of wastage. As the wealthiest man in the bounded universe, he could afford to consume a little. After all, it was better than having nothing when he wanted to use it. Just as he was thinking, there was a sudden tremor in the space above him. The space above his head shattered like a mirror with a crack. A large hand appeared abruptly, falling towards Yun Yang. The huge hand that suddenly appeared was over 1,000 feet in radius. With this grab, it covered a large area indiscriminately. Yun Yang reacted swiftly. The moment he swung his saber, it was as if he was being pressed down by a tremendous force from the sky, falling straight down from the top of the mountain. Rather than saying that he could not withstand the tremendous force, the fall was more like he had sunk into a swamp. The gigantic hand did not waver in its approach, colliding with Yun Yang's saberlight head-on and dispersing the saberlight without any hesitation. It descended from the sky almost without stopping, chasing after Yun Yang in a frenzy. Boom! With a loud bang, the large hand slammed onto the top of the mountain. Yun Yang, who had already entered the mountain, could only feel the entire mountain that was made of refined gold quiver. His surroundings rumbled as well, cracks appearing all over the place. How could the force of a single palm be so powerful? Fortunately, the power of the large hand was exhausted. With a soft bang, it turned into specks of golden light and dissipated instantly. In the air not far away, a white silhouette grunted, blood trickling down the corner of his mouth. "What kind of mountain is this?" he bellowed. The palm that he had gathered all of his cultivation base had landed on the mountain. Logically speaking, if it were an ordinary stone mountain, the force of the palm should have crushed it completely. It was only a matter of time before the mountain crumbled. Furthermore, Yun Yang had entered the mountain so easily, which meant that the mountain was actually just an ordinary mountain. Therefore, he had slammed his palm down without hesitation. However, the mountain in front of him had only shaken a little after taking the blow. There were not even many broken stones and rocks from the top of the mountain. Furthermore, it had dispersed the palm that he had gathered his mystical chi. It even produced a rebounding force that directly caused him to suffer internal injuries. Although the white-clothed man did not know what the texture of the strange mountain in front of him was like, he could already conclude that the texture of the strange mountain was special and far exceeded his understanding. It must be known that only a mountain that could completely withstand his full-strength palm strike without any damage could produce the same amount of rebound force and cause him, who was caught off guard, to suffer a great loss. This was probably the difference between bullying the weak and not being able to fight back. The man in white did not know the texture of the strange mountain in front of him, but he could tell that the strange mountain's texture was unique, far beyond his knowledge. Only a mountain that could withstand the full force of his palm strike without any damage could produce the same recoil force and cause him, who was caught off guard, to suffer a great loss. This was probably the difference between bullying the weak and not being strong enough. However, there were not many things in this world that could not be destroyed by the man in white's palm strike, let alone directly forming a mountain. This was too bizarre. While the man in white was still in shock, the wind suddenly whistled under his feet and a sharp saber light cut through the air. The moment the saber light flashed, its momentum increased rapidly, like a raging storm. In an instant, the boundless saber light had already gathered into a saber mountain, rising from the ground and shooting straight into the sky. Since his attack had failed, Yun Yang's counterattack came as fast as lightning. 4th level Saint Lord. The man in white had instantly determined Yun Yang's true cultivation base level. Although the combat power that Yun Yang had displayed so far had far surpassed that of a 4th level Saint Lord, he was still able to accurately grasp Yun Yang's true cultivation base. This was the insight of a half-step saint into the world. In front of a half-step saint, everything in the world was as clear as a blazing fire, nothing could be hidden. However, it was one thing to determine a person's cultivation base and another to actually fight. Just like the young man in front of him, His attack was extremely sharp, and he had just been ambushed and suffered the recoil of his full-force palm strike without any preparation. The injury caused by the recoil was still aching, and the moment he exerted force, blood spurted from his mouth. Freeze! The true power of the law of heaven and earth. A half-step saint cultivator's unique ability was to speak with the will of heaven, to obey the law. With this command, the heaven and earth within a radius of thousands of feet fell silent. Yun Yang's soaring cloud saber mountain that was charging towards him like a raging storm was frozen in mid-air. The saber light soared into the sky but froze instantly. Countless sabers glowed brilliantly in the air, a spectacular sight to behold. At the same time, Yun Yang's tall silhouette that had soared into the sky was frozen as well. In a flash, the man in white had already appeared near Yun Yang. Above Yun Yang's head was a 1,000-feet-high saber mountain while below him was 1,000 feet of empty space. He was frozen in the air quietly, unable to even move a finger. The advantage of both sides' offense and defense was suddenly reversed. What a peerless genius! The man in white's expression was indifferent, no longer enraged by the unexpected damage. Instead, his gaze was filled with conflict. Was he really going to kill him? Although there were geniuses all the time, geniuses were also divided into different levels. An extraordinary talent like Yun Yang was hard to come by even in a billion years. It would be such a waste to kill him just like that. A 22 to 23-year-old fourth-grade saint. This was unprecedented. Such an achievement was not only unprecedented, but it would be hard for anyone to catch up to him in the future. Not only his cultivation base, but even his combat awareness, tactics, and intelligence were extraordinary. This legend was now right in front of him, unable to move. As long as he stretched out his hand, he could squash him to death with 2 fingers. He could kill the legend instantly. However, the hesitation in the depths of the man in white's heart made it difficult for him to make a decision. Yun Yang, can you swear not to participate in the selection of Supreme Heaven Pavilion? The man in white looked at Yun Yang with a pitiful expression. Yun Yang, there are 3,000 ways, but the road ahead is not the same. You're a rare talent of the bound of universe's human race for thousands of years. If you die like this, it would be such a waste. Why seek your own death because of a moment of impulse? Yun Yang was frozen in the air, unable to move or speak. He could only stare at the man in white in front of him. The man in front of him was an expert beyond his knowledge. Before they even exchanged a single blow, he was already at an absolute disadvantage. He could not even control his own life and death. The situation was so bad that he had never seen it before. Duo! With a command, Yun Yang felt that his eyes could move and his mouth could speak, but his body was still immobile. He squinted and said faintly, "Half-saint." Half-saint. Unless it's someone above the level of half-saint, what other force in this world can keep you in check? The man in white smiled faintly. You're really amazing. You have the skills, the intelligence, the courage, the decisiveness, the future. You can even hurt me with your setup. You're not bad at all. With my identity, I shouldn't have attacked again if I missed my target, not to mention that I was injured by your setup. It's a huge loss and I'm defeated on the spot. However, you still lack the decisive ability. Otherwise, how can you turn the tables on each other? The man in white said patiently, "My suggestion is not for you to compromise. The selection of the Supreme Heaven Pavilion does not have any practical benefits for you. Even if you're chosen to be the lord of the palace, you're not familiar with the place and you have no foundation to speak of. How can you really control the palace? The palace that you've inherited will not be able to recover in the next 10,000 years. It'll be hard for it to regain its former glory. Therefore, the Supreme Heaven Pavilion is completely useless to you. If you're willing to swear to the heaven and earth now that you'll no longer participate in the selection of the Supreme Heaven Pavilion, I can make the decision and let you live." The man in white said softly, "I'll take care of all the troubles from the sons. Your safety will no longer be in danger." He sighed softly and said, "I really think that it would be a great pity if you died here. It would be a great pity for the human race. How about it? Are you willing to take a step back?" Yun Yang could feel the sincerity in the man's words. He did feel sorry for him and wanted to let him live, but, swear? Take a step back? Yun Yang blinked, his tone full of mockery as he said, "Yun Yang thanks Senior for your kindness, but does Senior think that after I swear to withdraw, The 3 heavenly palaces will be able to have everything go smoothly and all the sons of Saint will live in peace without any more disputes? The man in white was taken aback and did not answer immediately. Perhaps Senior thinks that after I leave, the position of the palace lord of the 3 heavenly palaces will fall into the hands of someone whom Senior approves of, and that the palace that Senior belongs to will be even more glorious. Or does Senior think that the top 3 heavenly palaces of the bound of universe, the 3 heavenly palaces that hold the fate of the world in their hands, will only be controlled by people who play tricks every day and assume the position of the highest decision-maker be considered successful? I, Yunyang, have been crowned with the title of Bound of Universe's Supreme Cloud, but I admit that I haven't achieved that much, nor have I truly reached the level of the Bound of Universe's hero. However, since I've been pushed to this position, my achievements are real and no one can deny it. I wonder if Senior agrees with this. Do you have any objections? Yes. I have no objections. The man in white's eyes were half-lidded. This was something that no one could deny, and there was no room for doubt. I'm a hero, my achievements in the bound of universe, my glory in history, but I'm being targeted by those sons of God who are high above. They want to kill me by any means necessary. Is this right? It shouldn't be. If Senior were to guard the mountain of blood soul for the human race all your life, how would you feel if you were betrayed and killed by the people you've protected? Would you take a step back? Yunyang asked softly. I'd be furious. I'd kill them. Why would I take a step back? The man in white's tone was still calm, but Yunyang's first 4 questions echoed in his heart. Was it really good to hand the heavenly palaces over to such a person? Did it mean that it was right all along? That's what I've done. Yunyang said faintly, but they've asked Senior to kill me. Senior can't bear to kill me, so you've come to force me to give up, to make me take a step back and make an oath to heaven? Yunyang smiled mockingly. I've earned the opportunity to step on these people and climb to the pinnacle of this world with my merits. I didn't act rashly or deceitfully, so why do I have to take a step back and make an oath to give up? The man in white sighed softly and said regretfully, It looks like you're not willing. I'm not willing. You'd rather die than be willing? The man in white asked softly. That's right. In this life of mine, I've marched forward. There's no turning back. There's no retreat. Yunyang said faintly. I only see the path ahead of me. I don't care about the hardships and obstacles along the way, nor do I care about the life and death tribulations along the way. Everything is but training. If I walk forward, it's my destiny. If I can't, it's also my destiny. Yunyang looked at the half-saint coldly. On the contrary, I'm very surprised. I've always thought that the sons of saints could only send forth a 4th-level saint lord at most. I didn't expect that they could actually ask for help from someone as lofty as you, Senior. The man in white exhaled softly and said, This old man is called Ning Fengxue. Lord Supreme Cloud, after this reincarnation, don't forget to seek revenge from this old man. So, you still want to kill me? Yunyang was not surprised by this man called Ning Fengxue's final decision. Any expert, famous, or strong person would have their own standpoint to choose. What really surprised him was that such a lofty person had long been untainted by karma, and had never fallen to the mundane world. Why would he appear here to attack him just for the battle of the sons of saints? Or perhaps, what was the reason that could make this person willingly enter the trap? The East Celestial Palace can only bear the surname Dongfang. Ning Fengxue sighed softly. Lord Supreme Cloud. I'm sorry. A fair jade-like hand slowly reached forward and pressed down on Yunyang's forehead, who could not move at all. Even if Yunyang's cultivation base was brimming and he was in peak condition, he would still not be able to escape death. Moreover, Yunyang could not move at all. He could only close his eyes and wait for death. It's better not to be so outstanding in my next life. The moment Ning Fengxue's palm pressed down, the last moment before it touched Yunyang's forehead, Yunyang's gaze that was initially tinged with anticipation suddenly turned cold and murderous. If I don't have a way to protect myself, how can I stay here? With a single thought, a purple light shot up into the sky. A purple jade flute appeared in the air. Chapter 1378. The purple jade flute that he had not seen for a long time suddenly appeared in the air. Following Yunyang's will, it fluttered towards Ning Fengxue. Ning Fengxue frowned and said calmly, Are you still going to struggle at this stage? His right hand's momentum did not change. Instead, it sped up. At the same time, the purple jade flute came along with the momentum and met Ning Fengshue's palm soundlessly. For Ning Fengxue, the purple jade flute was not a surprise at all. In fact, it could barely be considered a joke. It was not funny. You can't even move now. You want to fight for a chance of survival in front of a semi-sage just by using your mind to control the purple jade flute? How naive are you? However, Ning Fengshue's expression changed at the very next moment. Just as his palm was about to touch the purple jade flute and feel the coldness and warmth of the flute, he even began to think that this was a good treasure. However, when he came into contact with the purple jade flute, he did not manage to grab hold of it. The purple jade flute maintained its motionless posture and continued to slowly smash towards him, further touching his palm. It was at that moment that Ning Fengxue felt his hand suddenly turn into air, never to be seen again. Could one imagine that a half-step saint cultivator, a pinnacle expert of this world, who was still in control of the situation a moment ago, easily taking on the last bit of his opponent's counterattack, would suddenly lose his hand? It was inexplicable, unbelievable, and even more unbelievable. What was even more unbelievable was that the purple jade flute's momentum remained the same. It followed its original trajectory and followed Ning Fengshue's hand. Then, it could be said that it smashed through, smashed his hand into thin air, smashed his arm into thin air, then smashed it into thin air, then smashed his arm into thin air, and then continued to smash towards him. It was only then that Ning Fengxue felt pain. Excruciating pain. His eyes were filled with disbelief as he looked at his own hand. Yes, he should look at the position where his hand and arm should be, but there was nothing there. Every part of his body that had come in contact with the purple jade flute had disappeared. In the next moment, a soul-tearing pain surged through him like a torrential tsunami. Ning Fengxue exclaimed, his elegant and handsome expression finally changing completely. He retreated like a flash of lightning, 30,000 feet away. Looking up, the purple jade flute was still hovering in front of Yun Yang. There was no wind or movement. But, in front of him, there was another purple jade flute. Just like before, it slowly followed the trajectory of his arm and smashed towards him. Actually, using smashing here wasn't very appropriate. Rather, it should be said that it was an unstoppable momentum. If he really used smashing here, it would seem like he was overestimating Ning Fengxue too much. Even though he was a half-saint, he was still not worthy of the purple jade flute. Smash! Ning Fengxue was terrified. He hastily mobilized all of his divine senses to confirm that his right hand, forearm, and elbow had really turned into nothingness. It wasn't an illusion, nor was it some kind of trick. What is this? Seeing that the purple jade flute was still chasing after him, his body twisted and turned in the air. In an instant, he had teleported at least 30,000 feet away. He even tore through space repeatedly to escape, but the purple jade flute was still chasing after him, relentlessly chasing after him. From the beginning to the end, it was still slowly crushing over. There was no wind or movement. Ning Fengshue's body began to flicker. Techniques such as psionic manifestation and duplicating body were performed repeatedly, his body turning into thousands of figures. If any one of them could escape the purple jade flute's pursuit, Ning Fengxue would have the hope of escaping alive. However, the purple jade flute in the air had also turned into thousands of flutes. No matter how many Ning Fengxue appeared in the air, there was a purple jade flute in front of each Ning Fengxue, slowly approaching. There was still no wind or movement. Ning Fengxue was sweating profusely, drenching his shirt. His eyes were filled with fear as he stared at the purple jade flute. He could clearly feel that his clones and shadows were being crushed by the purple jade flute one by one. They were smashed into the air and completely disappeared. Every clone, every shadow that was smashed into the air would disappear, and the corresponding purple jade flute would also disappear. His cultivation was at the half-saint realm, and each of his clones and shadows possessed a cultivation at the peak of the 4th grade Saint Monarch realm. However, in front of the purple jade flute, they didn't have the slightest ability to resist. No, it was not only his clones and shadows, but his real self as well. No matter how he moved and how he tried to escape, the purple jade flute followed him like a maggot in his bones. He could not shake it off no matter what. He knew that he was not dead, yet not because he was faster than the purple jade flute, but because Yun Yang had not given the final order to kill him. It had been tens of thousands of years, and Ning Fengxue once again felt the fear of death. He fled in a frenzy, using all sorts of techniques. Weapons, mystical powers, and magical treasures were all thrown out. However, no matter what kind of mystical weapon or magical treasure they vaporized instantly when they came before the purple jade flute, disappearing in an instant. There was not even the slightest chance to slow him down. It was as ordinary as it had been in the beginning. There was no wind or movement. It was just so leisurely, slowly flying behind him. With a flash, Ning Fengxue appeared in front of Yun Yang once more. At first glance, the scene was almost devastating. Yun Yang was still imprisoned by himself, but there was a purple jade flute in front of Yun Yang. It was like a dutiful guard, not moving in the slightest despite the lack of wind. What the hell was this thing that had been following him and chasing him? Had he really seen a ghost today? When their eyes met, Ning Fengxue could see that Yun Yang was still unable to move, but his cold eyes were looking at her quietly. At this moment, Ning Fengxue's face was deathly pale. His celestial and otherworldly appearance had long since disappeared. He was in a sorry state, but the expression in his eyes was still calm. Even though he was no longer composed, his white robe was still spotless. If it was not for the fact that his entire right arm, all the way to his shoulder, was gone, he would not have looked so sorry. There was no trace of blood where his arm had been cut off, as if he was born without a right arm. The purple jade flute stayed quietly on his right shoulder, no longer moving forward, but it did not retreat either. Just like before, it was unmoving, unperturbed like a mountain. Ning Fengxue was no longer evading, no longer casting his arcane skills, as if he had given up on struggling. In fact, he was channeling his mystical art wholeheartedly, trying to recover his right arm. However, the more he channeled his cultivation method, the worse his expression became. When one reached the level of a supreme saint, regrowing a severed limb was already a trivial matter. When one reached the level of a saint, even if his entire body was destroyed, as long as there was some flesh and blood left, he could use a saint's strong vitality to swiftly recover. As for Ning Fengxue, who had already reached the level of a half-saint, logically speaking, it would only take a blink of an eye for his missing arm to grow back. It would be no different from his original arm. However, the actual situation now was, no matter what he did, no matter how much he urged the ocean-like mystical qi in his body to repair and grow, the severed arm could not grow back. Endless vitality surged into his shoulder, but it would disappear immediately, unable to nourish his physical body and regrow his severed arm. In addition to the countless clones that had been shattered by the purple jade flute, Ning Fengxue's mental strength was extremely weak, not even half of what it used to be. This pinnacle expert who stood above the clouds was like a candle flickering in the wind, with only a spark left. If Yun Yang had not pulled his hand back, he would have been killed by the purple jade flute. How could there be a fluke? Ning Fengxue finally stopped trying. His composure was nowhere to be seen, replaced by a forlorn smile. Then he calmed down. With a snap of his fingers, the restraints that trapped Yun Yang were lifted. Then he heaved a long sigh and said, "Great technique, truly a great technique. What artifact is this?" As Yun Yang extended his arm, the purple jade flute in front of him and the one on Ning Fengxue's shoulder disappeared at the same time, leaving only the one that fell into his hand. It was as if there was only one purple jade flute from the beginning to the end, glowing with a purple glow. "I dare not claim that it's a great technique. It's just my last resort," Yun Yang said faintly. Yun Yang said faintly, "This is a defensive treasure that my master has given me. It's used to deal with people like you, senior, who I can't even handle. This is the first time I've seen the might of this flute today. I can only marvel at it in awe." Ning Fengxue guffawed. "This old man wants to kill you. You've gained the upper hand now. Why don't you just kill me now?" Yun Yang said quietly, "I've never been a good person, but it's a pity for someone like Senior to die just like that. The Crimson Soul Mountain still needs warriors after all. This purple jade flute's power is too shocking. I'm afraid that Senior's arm can't possibly recover." Ning Fengxue shook his head and smiled faintly. "Acting rashly, inviting disaster upon oneself. I've tried to harm a hero of this world. If this arm is heaven's punishment for this old man, it's only a small punishment. How dare I ask for more?" With a wave of his hand, he brought Yun Yang down to the peak of the mountain. When both of their feet touched the ground, Ning Fengxue sighed and said softly, "Back then, He Bu was the reincarnation of this old man's eldest disciple. He was hunted down when he was weak and his life was in danger. It was Dongfang Xingchen who appeared with his guards and saved his life." "Ha! Yun Yang was taken aback. He recalled that the Saint Lord who guarded the Crimson Soul Mountain, He Bu Yu, was actually the reincarnation of his eldest disciple? Palace Master brought Dongfang Xingchen, who was still a young man at that time, along with Bu Yu, to this old man. On account of Palace Master's face, although this old man knew that young Palace Master was behind all of this, I still promised you a favor. This favor will allow this old man to help young Palace Master once, and it can be anything. Yun Yang's expression tightened. Anything? That's right. With senior status and cultivation base, since you've made a promise, it should naturally be anything. There are very few things in this world that senior can't do or not do. A faint smile appeared on Ning Fengshue's face. There's a limit to a person's strength. Even a half-saint cultivator is still a human. Naturally, there's a price to pay for making false promises. When I said those words, I already felt that heaven was punishing me. But I relied on my cultivation base and was blindly confident. So, it's actually here. Heaven's reincarnation is indeed good. Who will be spared? After this old man has no more karmic entanglements in this world other than Lord Supreme Cloud's kindness of sparing my life. Lord Supreme Cloud has his own ways. I'm afraid you won't care about this old man's repayment. Since Lord Supreme Cloud said that the Crimson Soul Mountain lacks warriors, then this old man hopes that the Crimson Soul Mountain can kill a few more Demon Kings as compensation. He glanced at Yun Yang. Lord Supreme Cloud, thank you for your magnanimity for sparing my life. This old man shall take his leave now. Yun Yang was clear that this old man actually understood everything in his heart, so he explained the ins and outs of the matter before leaving. Senior, take care. We may meet again in the future on the Crimson Soul Mountain, and it's not impossible for us to fight the enemy together. Ning Fengxue laughed heartily. Good. We'll meet again on the Crimson Soul Mountain. Before his voice echoed in the air, he had already torn the space apart with a wave of his remaining left hand. He took a step into the space and turned back, wanting to say something, but in the end, the words did not leave his mouth. Waving his hand, he disappeared without a trace. Yun Yang had the purple jade flute in his hand, so why would he need to remind him of anything? As for what Yun Yang wanted to do, it was not up to him to say anything. Everything would just go with the flow. Watching Ning Fengxue, the pinnacle cultivator of this world, leave, Yun Yang's gaze was deep. Dongfang Xingchen. As expected, Dongfang Haoren's son was the one who gave the most orders, and he was also the one who wanted him dead the most. He had actually sent out a half-saint cultivator to assassinate Yun Yang. It's time to settle this matter once and for all. I just don't know if you all are willing to see the scene after I've settled it. The arrival of this half-saint should be the climax of this incident. I believe that these sons of saints won't be able to invite a saint expert. If I were Dongfang Xingchen, I wouldn't be willing to waste such a huge favor to ask Ning Fengxue for help. I would want to take back some of the price. Ning Fengxue, this half-saint expert, will never fail. If it were me, I would also think that the matter is settled. Then I should do this and this. In a secret space, 3 people with the same solemn expression sat in a circle. How many on your side? Dongfang Haoren's face, which had always been calm and composed, was now extremely ugly as he asked Shimen Fanfu. Shimen Fanfu, the lord of Western Heaven's Saint Palace, had a twisted expression on his face. 32. What about you? He asked Beigong Lioli. Beigong Lioli's face was ashen. 28. Dongfang Haoren said as if he was about to vomit blood. Why are there so few of you? At this moment, he felt like he was going to die of embarrassment. I didn't write 8,000 today after all. GT. Chapter 1379. How many do you have? The 2 palace masters asked at the same time. 37. Dongfang Haoren's face was completely twisted. You have to add the Sacred Heart Palace. The great elder of the Sacred Heart Palace has already confirmed that there's something fishy going on. So many people in the Sacred Heart Palace are suspicious as well. Dongfang Haoren would never have thought that the Eastern Celestial Palace would suffer the greatest loss in this purge. This made Dongfang Haoren, who had always thought of himself as wise and strict, lose face. Shimen Fanfu and Beigong Lioli looked at each other. Although they were slightly gloating, their hearts were heavy and they could not be happy even if they wanted to. 4 holy sons of the Eastern Celestial Palace. It has been confirmed that 3 of them are involved in this matter, and they are the masterminds. The biggest mastermind is my son. Say. When Dongfeng Haoren said this, the other two did not want to know what he was feeling. Beigong Liuli also looked like she was about to vomit blood. My son is the same. Similar to your son. Shimin Fafu's face was green. Both of your sons are involved. Don't tell me you think that my son will stay out of this. The three palace masters looked at each other and saw the complicated expressions on each other's faces. This matter has actually gone out of control now. Dongfeng Haoren smiled helplessly. The people with ulterior motives have already been found. This is no longer the current focus. The current focus should be on. This force is too strong. Once they are all cleaned up, the three celestial palaces will lose at least 20% of their overall strength. This loss is too much. When did these bastards gather so many experts? Shimin Fafu also felt troubled. What should we do now? Should we continue with the plan? Dongfeng Haoren smiled bitterly. The plan has its rewards, and the rewards are not small. The biggest reward of the plan is Yun Yang. If we change our minds and stop the operation, it's not right. Along the way, Yun Yang's cultivation base has been constantly improving. He's even raised his cultivation base to the 4th grade Saint realm through the tempering of life and death situations. He's only a step away from entering the realm of half-saint. Dongfeng Haoren said in a low voice. I have said it from the beginning. Yun Yang's future is not limited to the 3 heavenly palace lords. He can become the next pillar of the bound of universe. His advancement cannot be interrupted. As he spoke, his expression became even more unsightly. Now that something like this has happened to the heavenly palace, I haven't made up my mind yet. Whether or not I should completely eradicate it. I believe it's the same for the two of you. Dongfeng Haoren's expression was pained and complicated, but he gritted his teeth and said, Since you and I can't make a decision and can't be ruthless, then let Yun Yang solve this matter. Let's just say that out of sight, out of mind. Shimin Fanfu closed his eyes and said softly, That's right. Let Yun Yang take over and deal with it. Even if he kills them all, I won't have any complaints. If Yun Yang is willing to let them go, it'll be difficult for us when he comes back. If Sai. Shimin Fanfu's words were incoherent and his expression was even more unsightly. After a long while, he finally stopped talking. Dongfeng Haoren's lips were trembling as he murmured, How could it have come to this? His gaze was actually a little hollow. Beigong Lioli's expression was complicated as she heaved a long sigh. She shook her head as if she wanted to say something but did not say it in the end. The 3 heavenly palaces can be managed well in your hands, but you can't even teach your son well. The 3 heavenly palace lords looked at each other and saw the heart-wrenching helplessness in each other. As the 3 of them were discussing, Dongfeng Haoren's expression changed abruptly. He grabbed a communication jade and inserted mystical qi into it. He had already instructed them not to disturb him unless there was something important. Now that there was such an urgent message, it was definitely not a small matter. As soon as the communication jade lit up, an urgent message came from it. Palace lords, something bad has happened. Young palace lord has asked Ningfeng Xue to kill Yun Yang. F***CK. The 3 heavenly palace lords cursed in unison and stood up at the same time. Their 3 faces that were usually as steady as mountains had changed color. Despite all their calculations, there was still one flaw. They thought that they were not in control. In the next moment, the 3 of them moved in unison, tearing the space apart and flying out. Although there seemed to be only half a level of difference between a Saint Lord and a half-saint, according to the outside world's evaluation of Yun Yang's current combat strength, killing a 3rd-level Saint Lord in 3 strikes could only be done by a 4th-level Saint Lord. Did this not mean that Yun Yang was only a step away from a half-saint cultivator? Even if there was still a gap, it did not look like it was too great. However, in reality, the difference between the two was like heaven and earth. There was no comparison at all when there was a fundamental difference. Just like the time when Yun Yang had yet to step into the Saint Lord realm, he could indeed fight against a 1st or 2nd-level Saint Lord cultivator based on his combat strength alone. However, as long as a Saint Lord cultivator executed a spatial sealing technique, Yun Yang would immediately be unable to do anything. Compared to the sage to be absolute law and the heavenly constitution, the gap of this one step was even greater. Once Ningfeng Xue made his move, it meant that Yun Yang would no longer have any chance of survival. The three Heavenly Palace Lords' only hope was that Yun Yang would be lucky enough to survive before they arrived. As for Yun Yang being able to counterattack and kill a half-saint cultivator like Ningfeng Xue, the three of them had never once thought of it. Dongfeng, didn't you say that half-saint cultivators and above are not allowed to participate in the affairs of the Sons of Saint? This has been the rule for hundreds of thousands of years. Why is it that your son has made an exception? Now that the situation is like this, what do you want us to think? What right does Dongfeng Xingchen have to invite a half-saint cultivator? Is there a hidden agenda behind this? Isn't this a bastard? Your Eastern Celestial Palace might as well just invite a saint to take action. The two Heavenly Palace Lords had a bellyful of complaints. Dongfeng Haoren had a bellyful of bitterness that was rarely vented, so he sighed endlessly towards the sky. What can I say? I can say that I was also involved in this matter back then, but I can't say anything. The three palace masters rushed over together, but on the way, they unexpectedly sensed an extremely dispirited aura coming towards them. This aura was not unfamiliar to the three of them, and it was the target of their trip. The three of them tore the space apart and intercepted the person. Taking a closer look, they could not help exclaiming in unison, "It's really you!" The owner of the dispirited aura was none other than Ningfeng Xue. The three of them had initially decided that they would beat Ningfeng Xue up the moment they saw him, followed by a scolding and other subsequent punishments. However, looking at him now, the three of them were speechless. Ningfeng Xue's face was pale and he looked miserable, like a lamp that had run out of oil. What shocked the three of them even more was that one of Ningfeng Xue's shoulders was empty. A half-saint cultivator had actually lost an arm? What's going on? Who did this? The three Heavenly Palace Lords were dumbfounded. It was even more shocking than when they received the news that Ningfeng Xue had targeted Yun Yang. Who did it? Ningfeng Xue smiled faintly. Palace Lord, do you think, under the circumstances where those old fellows didn't do anything, who else could do it? Dongfeng Haoren's eyes widened. This, could it be? Yun Yang. It can't be. Why not, it's him. Ningfeng Xue chuckled bitterly and said, regarding Supreme Cloud, I have something to tell Palace Lord and to ask for forgiveness. Coincidentally, meeting the three of you here has saved me a lot of trouble. After this subordinate will not return to the Heavenly Palace. After finding a place to talk, this old man will go directly to the Blood Soul Mountain. He sighed dispiritedly. What else can I say? All right. Who were the three Heavenly Palace Lords? Seeing Ningfeng Xue's condition, they knew that something was wrong. They suppressed their doubts and waited quietly for Ningfeng Xue's explanation. To them, no matter how great Yun Yang's improvement was, no matter how amazing he was, it was impossible for him to injure Ningfeng Xue to this extent. Otherwise, the three of them would not have come together to save him. However, the truth was right before their eyes. The impossible had become possible. Nonetheless, it was still too shocking. Ningfeng Xue, who was leading the way, looked haggard, sighed inwardly. Yun Yang, since you have the intention to reorganize the world, this old man will buy you half a day more time. I only hope that you know what you're doing. Yun Yang was covered in blood, but he still pretended to be calm as he walked slowly into tonight's city. Yun Yang's overflowing aura was still strong, still exuding an extremely sharp feeling. He did not stop to greet any guests along the way as he walked towards the inn he was staying at. Suddenly, a shadow flashed. Beigong Wushuang landed in front of Yun Yang with two other men. Whether it was intentional or not, he exclaimed, Lord Supreme Cloud, are you hurt? Yun Yang stood still, his eyes half-lidded as he said faintly, It's just a small injury, nothing to worry about. Beigong Wushuang waved his hand, and two fragrant white pills flew over. These are my Northern Wasteland Demon Palace's 9 reincarnation life restoration pills. Whether it's for reviving the soul, prolonging life, or improving blood circulation, they're top-notch. Brother Yun, quickly consume them. Yun Yang grabbed it and tossed it into his mouth without a second thought, saying, Why are you here? Beigong Wushuang smiled. Brother Yun's display of power a few days ago turned the tables on us. They don't have the ability to monitor me now, so of course they can come as they please. However, I'm here to share some information with Brother Yun. I've never forgotten about our alliance. Yun Yang frowned. Them? Beigong Wushuang lowered his voice and said, Let's talk as we walk. Dongfeng Xingchen and the others are waiting for news now. According to what I know, Dongfang Xingchen has already hired a half-saint to deal with you. As he spoke, he accompanied Yun Yang and carefully observed Yun Yang's expression. A sharp glint flashed across Yun Yang's eyes as he murmured thoughtfully, "A half-saint? That's right. Even if Brother Yun's cultivation base is extraordinary, you still won't stand a chance against a half-saint. It's better to think of a plan as soon as possible." Beigong Wushuang's tone was filled with worry. As he spoke, he thought to himself. Looking at Yun Yang now, it's obvious that he's just gone through a tough battle. Although 3 people have been sent to assassinate him previously, the chances of the trio succeeding are minuscule as long as Yun Yang is able to react, judging from the capability he's shown previously. However, Yun Yang is obviously severely injured now. Where did he get this injury from? Could it be that Yun Yang has already fought with a half-saint outside just now? The real reason why he's injured is actually because he fought with a half-saint? The more Beigong Wushuang thought about it, the more reasonable it seemed. When he mentioned the half-saint just now, Yun Yang's expression had changed subtly and the 2 words he had murmured, half-saint. These 3 words were quite meaningful, weren't they? Beigong Wushuang pondered. Initially, they had planned to watch the battle as a precaution, but how could they allow others to watch and offend a half-saint? Just as Lu Yongzai and the other 2 left, Dongfang Xingchen had already said that a half-saint had made a move. Therefore, they were all waiting for news here, completely unaware of Lu Yongzai and the other 2's escape. As for the actual situation of a half-saint's attack, they naturally had no idea either. If a half-saint was not allowed to watch, going would be an affront to a half-saint's dignity. How was that any different from seeking death? However, Yun Yang had returned unscathed despite looking like he was in a bad state. As Supreme Cloud's ally, Beigong Wushuang naturally had to come over to check on the situation. In spite of this, Yun Yang's current attitude and reaction were thought-provoking and intriguing. If a half-saint had made a move, how could he still be alive? Beigong Wushuang's heart was in turmoil. Could he have let him go on purpose? Yun Yang walked forward with steady steps. Your information came too late. Too late. Beigong Wushuang's heart skipped a beat. Where are the other sons of Saint now? Yun Yang asked again. Although Yun Yang's face was pale and unsightly, his question was still filled with a murderous aura that could not be denied. They're all at Dongfang Xingchen's Supreme Tower now. Beigong Wushuang said, 7 to 8 of them have gathered together to discuss how to deal with you. Brother Yun, what do you plan to do next? I'll know how to cooperate with you, Yun Yang said coldly. I don't need you for now. It's fine if they don't make a move, but if anyone dares to, I'll kill them all and end it once and for all. As he spoke, he suddenly grunted and a trickle of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Beigong, your 9 transformations life-reviving pill. Beigong Wushuang's gaze turned cold and ruthless as he smiled. Don't worry, Brother Yun. Although my 9 transformations life-reviving pill is miraculous, it will cause a clash in the blood chi for a certain period of time at the point of consumption. However, this is the magical aspect of the 9 transformations life-reviving pill. For those who are severely injured, it will stimulate the blood chi to fuse with the medicinal effect and circulate through the entire body. Won't the effects be faster and the healing speed be faster? Beigong Wushuang explained, but he was secretly delighted. Yun Yang was indeed injured, and it was not a light one at that. It was very likely that his core had been injured, and the loss of his combat power was inevitable. This was how it should be. It was already shocking enough to be able to stay alive in a battle with a half-saint. Yun Yang should not have any combat power left now. As he thought about it, evil thoughts surged. Chapter 1380. Beigong Wushuang fished out a piece of purple jade and passed it to Yun Yang. Brother Yun, this jade slip contains all the information about the sons of Holy Scions and their followers. Whether it's their cultivation base, combat strength, appearance, affiliation, cultivation method, killing technique, or even temperament. It's all described in detail. His smile was adorable and amiable. This is also part of our agreement. Yun Yang accepted it and said, "Oh." Then, he inserted his deific consciousness into it to check, not suspecting anything. I've agreed to Brother Yun's conditions a long time ago. Our alliance is witnessed by heaven's oath. Beigong Wushuang chuckled. To be honest, Brother Yun, all the information about me and my followers is also included in this jade slip. There are very few omissions. Yun Yang laughed and said, I've witnessed Brother Baigong's sincerity. Let's have a pleasant cooperation. With the Heaven's Oath in place, the information could not be false. Yun Yang paused and said, Don't worry, Brother Baigong. I've always remembered the conditions I've agreed to. Just as he said this, Baigong Wushuang suddenly said faintly, Is that so? Before his words echoed in the air, he suddenly waved his hand and attacked with the other two people beside him. Two Saint Lords, one on the left and one on the right, stabbed their sabers and swords into Yun Yang's left and right ribs. The moment the weapons entered his body, mystical qi exploded. The two men reacted quickly and let go of their weapons. Instead of retreating, they advanced, their palms landing hundreds of palm strikes on Yun Yang's body like a thunderstorm. On the other hand, Baigong Wushuang, who was standing right in front of him, flicked his hands and a short sword materialized. It was laced with a strong air of death and destruction as it pierced through Yun Yang's forehead. Then, he pressed his palm against Yun Yang's chest like a bolt of lightning. A gust of sinister mystical qi surged into his heart. Baigong Wushuang did not stop after his successful attack. He had already retreated 100 feet away. Looking at Yun Yang with a grin, he nodded and smiled. Brother Yun, I'm sorry. The trio's joint attack was so abrupt that Yun Yang, who was caught off guard, could not react in time. He froze as if he had been struck by lightning. His body had suddenly suffered so many heavy blows, but he did not seem to be able to react. Blood continued to flow from his mouth. He raised his head shakily, his eyes still filled with confusion. He looked at Baigong Wushuang and murmured, Why? Baigong Wushuang said apologetically, Brother Yun, thank you for accepting my sincerity. Our cooperation has been genuine from the start. I also sincerely hope that if I can't kill you, you can help me get rid of a few opponents. If I can't kill you, then there's no harm and we can benefit each other. But my ultimate goal is still to kill you. The only difference is that there is no chance. Here. Yang's word for me. Of. Baigong of Wushuang. And for Yang. Yun. Yun Yang of a smile. The light in his eyes quickly dissipated, and even his pupils continued to dilate. He muttered, So, this information is also fake? How can it be fake? Baigong Wushuang said. This information is all true. It can't be any more true. When I was interacting with Brother Yun, I didn't lie to Brother Yun at all. Otherwise, how could I have escaped the punishment of the heavens? I'm really sorry that a hero like Brother Yun actually died in my hands. Ha ha ha. Yun Yang chuckled softly. Yes, I'm very disappointed as well. If I were to die in the hands of other sons of God, I could still accept it. But why did it have to be you, the sons of the Palace Lord, who want to kill me? Dongfeng Xingchen is the same. Are you the same? Baigong Wushuang said apologetically, I'm sorry. Rest in peace, Brother Yun. I'll chop off your head after you close your eyes. You won't feel any pain this way. It's the only thing I can do for you. Yun Yang chuckled. You've never died. How do you know you won't feel pain? Baigong Wushuang's expression changed. Why aren't you dead yet? Yun Yang sighed. I've disappointed you, holy son Baigong. He slowly straightened his body. First, the bloody hole on his forehead disappeared. Then, the serious injuries from the sword and saber disappeared as well. Under Baigong Wushuang's horrified gaze, Yun Yang shook his head and cracked his neck, producing a series of cracking noises. His right hand glowed and a saber appeared in it. His left hand stretched out and a flute appeared in the air. How are you still alive? Baigong Wushuang was shocked. Weren't you sealed by the demon race? How can you still use such a mystical art? Yun Yang said lightly, You really shouldn't be worrying about this. What you should be thinking about now is whether or not you'll die a painful death. In the next moment, Baigong Wushuang turned to flee. Young Palace Lord, run! The two saint monarchs beside him rushed forward like mad tigers to stop them. A ferocious glint flashed in Yun Yang's eyes. The rage that he had been suppressing all this while erupted abruptly. Waving the purple jade flute in his left hand, two purple jade flutes materialized in the air and flew towards the two saints. Yun Yang himself chased after Baigong Wushuang without any resistance. Just as he gave chase, two soft popping sounds came from his left and right. The two saint lords had vanished into thin air. Their souls were destroyed and they were beyond redemption. After killing the enemy in one strike, the 2 purple jade flutes in the air disappeared as well. Yun Yang, on the other hand, looked slightly pale. He kept the purple jade flute without a word. The purple jade flute's power was immense and invincible, but the mystical qi required to activate it was also unbelievably high. With Yun Yang's current mental and mystical energy, he could only activate the purple jade flute to attack once, even if he gave it his all. After that, he would need to wait for it to fully recover before he could activate it again. If he forcefully activated it, it would inevitably hurt his foundation. When the purple jade flute moved just now, the mystical qi in his dantian was almost emptied. If it were not for the endless spiritual energy in his deific consciousness space that was replenishing his dantian, Yun Yang might not even have the strength to stand. Yun Yang activated the endless divine art and followed behind Beigong Wushuang at a moderate pace. They were only a few hundred feet apart, but he did not go any closer, only making sure that he did not fall behind. He chased after Beigong Wushuang. At the same time, he felt the mystical qi in his dantian recovering rapidly. Today is a good day to settle debts of gratitude and enmity. Yun Yang felt the qi of karma gushing into his body. His gaze grew colder and colder. Yun Yang and Beigong Wushuang chased relentlessly, moving as fast as lightning or as fast as a shooting star. Just then, a silhouette appeared to intercept them. Stop! A sword light came at Yun Yang faster than the speed of sound. Yun Yang snorted. Saber Truth, Destiny Blade, Door of Life and Death, was unleashed at his will. Although Beigong Wushuang was a son of saint, it was already the limit for his guards to have the strength of a 3rd-level Holy Lord. With Yun Yang's current ability, it was an absolute suppression. How could there be a fluke in killing him with a single strike? With a swing of the saber, the intruder perished. Wherever Yun Yang passed, the remnant of the person's soul was annihilated as well. A 3rd-level Holy Lord could not even delay Yun Yang by a single step. His soul and spirit were both destroyed at once, beyond redemption. Beigong Wushuang fled in front, his expression full of fear. How could he not feel the dark clouds of death looming over his head? He was running for his life, hoping to get away from this cloud of death. However, with every step he took and every moment he fled, he felt the atmosphere of death grow thicker. Yet he had to run and struggle. With the god of death behind him, if he did not run or struggle, he would be destroyed with a snap of his fingers. He was filled with regret, indescribable regret. He should not have targeted Yun Yang at all. With the previous agreement, as long as he did not take the initiative to target Yun Yang, he would be fine even if all the sons of Saint died. At that time, he would perhaps be the biggest winner. Yet, why did he have to take things so hard and make a move? Yun Yang had been following behind him. Although he was chasing after him, he did not strike a fatal blow. Beigong Wushuang knew very well that it was not that Yun Yang was not strong enough, but if Yun Yang attacked, he would die. However, Yun Yang did not make a move, only following him at a steady pace. His murderous intent grew thicker and thicker bit by bit. Along the way, Beigong Wushuang's followers continued to charge towards Yun Yang, the continent's hero. However, there were no exceptions. No one was able to block Yun Yang's path, and all of them perished without a trace of their lives left. Yun Yang's gaze grew colder. At this moment, he unleashed the peerless power of the endless divine art, activating the divine edge with all his might and wielding the divine edge. The true power of the divine edge was revealed. All weapons that came into contact with it were shattered instantly. All the experts who charged over perished under the divine edge. Once the blade was unleashed, life and death were decided. There was no telling who would win or lose. There was no mercy at all. Yun Yang followed closely behind Beigong Wushuang, staying close to him. Those who came to stop him perished under his blade. The journey finally came to an end. The Supreme Tower's courtyard was already in sight. It was the residence of Dongfang Xingchen and the other sons of Saint. Along the way, the commotion caused by the battle had long alerted the people in the courtyard. Silhouettes flew into the air. Dongfang Xingchen stood at the forefront, dressed in snow-white robes. Looking up, he saw Beigong Wushuang running for his life. Seeing Dongfang Xingchen and the others from afar, Beigong Wushuang screamed, "Save me! Quick, save me!" Dongfang Xingchen, Yu Zhenxiao, and the rest looked from afar. Behind Beigong Wushuang, a purple silhouette slowly approached amidst a cloud of dust. The newcomer was dressed in a purple robe and wore a mask. Who else could it be if not Universe Supreme Yun Yang? Amidst the dust, Beigong Wushuang's last follower forcefully interposed between the two, waving his blade and striking. Lord Supreme Cloud, who was advancing forcefully, waved his long blade. No one could see how he executed the move, but this saint was instantly sliced into two. As Yun Yang's figure moved smoothly past the two halves of the corpse, a stream of soul energy was about to rise. Suddenly, an emerald green vine emerged from Yun Yang's body. It was as transparent as jade, sweeping through the air and wrapping up the spirit body, retrieving it. In midair, the spirit body let out a blood-curdling scream before disappearing completely. Then, the emerald green vine disappeared without a trace. Yun Yang, who had killed his enemy with a single strike, continued to move forward, chasing after Beigong Wushuang at a distance of 300 to 400 feet. Beigong Wushuang's movements gradually slowed down. Panting heavily, he suddenly pounced on the high wall and cried out, "Save me!" In front of him was the other son of Devil Palace of the Northern Wilderness, Nantian Yun. Based on Beigong Wushuang's cultivation base, running from the scene of the incident to here should not even be considered a trivial matter. At the very least, he should not be panting like this. It was as if someone had done that to him for a very, very long time, and his body felt severely drained. The root cause was that his heart had broken down, and he was in a constant state of anxiety. Naturally, he was in an extremely bad condition. Nantian Yun's expression changed, and he was about to step aside. As a fellow son of Devil Palace, even if he did not get along with Beigong Wushuang on the surface, he would not kick him when he was down at such a critical juncture. Just then, an indifferent voice rang out from behind Beigong Wushuang. "Beigong Wushuang, don't think that you've escaped. I will never go back on my word. Open your eyes wide and prepare yourself. Feel the taste of death, whether it's painful or not. Watch carefully. This is what I'm saying to you." The saber light flashed. The first to bear the brunt of the attack was Nantian Yun. His face was filled with confusion and panic as he flew up without any warning. Before his soul had even appeared, the emerald green vine that everyone had already noticed earlier appeared once again and swept him away. Nantian Yun's head spun in the air as it fell. Beigong Wushuang subconsciously stretched out his hands and caught Nantian Yun's head in his palms. His eyes met Nantian Yun's wide and empty eyes, and he felt an inexplicable fear welling up in his heart. Beigong Wushuang shuddered and loosened his grip. Nantian Yun's head fell to the ground at once and rolled away. The sound of the head falling was not very loud, but it seemed to ring directly in everyone's hearts. No one was not shocked. All the sons of Saint, without exception, shuddered and looked down hurriedly. They saw Nantian Yun's head rolling a few times on the ground before it stopped and looked up at the sky. This was the first son of Saint to die in Night City tonight. Yun Yang had killed Nantian Yun with a single strike of his saber. In that instant, all the saints present were dumbfounded. "Are you satisfied now, Beigong Wushuang? Nantian Yun's death means I've fulfilled my promise to you. You can go on your way with peace of mind." The saber light shone even brighter. It was as if it was shimmering with splendor, flowing lights and vibrant colors flew up. Wherever the saber light passed, a large transparent hole immediately appeared in Beigong Wushuang's chest. His head immediately flew into the sky, and a perfectly round column of blood spurted out from his neck. His body swayed a few times, and he collapsed to the ground. At this moment, after personally witnessing such a bloody scene, even Dongfang Xingchen's eyes were filled with fear of the situation spiraling out of control. Other than being a holy son, Beigong Wushuang was also the son of the Northern Wilderness Demon Palace's palace lord. However, Yun Yang had killed him without any hesitation. Doesn't that mean, to me? He had updated it too late and had written in the wrong direction. He had written that Beigong was not dead and that Yun Yang could not bear to see the three palace lords die without a bloodline. After he had finished writing, the more he read, the more he felt that something was amiss, so he had deleted everything and killed it directly. Remember the website of the mobile version, Chapter 486, Killing Son of Saint Beheading Beigong. Page 1/1. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 1381. Yun Yang walked over slowly, one step at a time. His purple robes looked like he had walked out of a boundless sea of blood. In the eyes of the crowd, he was glowing like a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. At the same time, an overwhelming murderous aura surrounded him. Every step he took on the ground produced a clear sound, like the war drums of the Grim Reaper, ringing heavily in the hearts of the crowd. When he was about 100 feet away from the wall, Yun finally stopped in his tracks. Lifting his head, he nodded slowly and said, "Everyone is here." There were about 30 to 40 people up there, all glaring angrily at him. Among them, the ones who attracted the most attention were the chosen. Dongfang Xingchen, Yuzhen Xiao, and Xinyu, Shimen Huanyu, Jia Shixiang, Feng Patian, and the demonic palace of the north. Yun rubbed his nose, surprised to find that the chosen of the demonic palace of the north was nowhere to be seen. Out of the 4 chosen of the demonic palace of the north, other than the 2 he had killed, the remaining 2 were not here. Yun had a very clear understanding now. Anyone who was here now wanted to kill him. Therefore, it was reasonable for him to kill anyone who tried to kill him. Yun! Dongfang Xingchen bellowed in exasperation. "How dare you!" Dongfang Xingchen had always considered himself to be the next palace lord of the Eastern Celestial Palace, and he was also proud of this identity. He had never believed that anyone would dare to kill the son of the current palace lord of the Eastern Celestial Palace, be it the chosen or anyone else. This was his bottom line, but now he dared not think about it anymore. Beigong Wushuang's status was similar to his, or even identical. Then, how could Yun, who dared to kill Beigong Wushuang, not dare to kill him? Another chosen of the other 3 palaces, the son of the current palace lord? Yun raised his eyes tiredly and said faintly, "Shut up! I've already killed him, why are you still screaming?" Dongfang Xingchen only felt an unprecedented murderous aura rushing towards him. His mouth and nose could not help but freeze, unable to speak. Yun looked at Dongfang Xingchen, a trace of pity in his eyes, and said faintly, "Dongfang Xingchen, do you know that among all the chosen, the one I don't want to kill the most is you?" Dongfang Xingchen's face was pale, and he forced a smile. Lord Supreme Cloud is too kind. Xingchen has always seen Lord Supreme Cloud as a role model. Yun smiled faintly. "I don't want to kill you because you're Dongfang Haoren's son. Palace Lord Dongfang has taken good care of me. If it's not necessary, I don't want to upset him. No matter how high one's cultivation base is or how open-minded one is, the pain of losing one's son is still an unbearable price to pay. So from that night onwards, even though your life was clearly in my hands, I didn't make a move. Or, did you and the rest of you really think that I wouldn't dare to kill you because of your identities as saints? The so-called saint is nothing in my eyes. He's not even worth a fart. But of all the things you shouldn't have done, you shouldn't have refused to give up." Yun shook his head and sighed. There's a saying in this world that goes, "Don't turn back until you hit the wall." If it were someone else, they would have sent more than a dozen Saint Lords to kill me and they still couldn't kill me. Even if they sent a 4th-level Saint Lord, they would have returned empty-handed. Dongfang Xingchen's face grew paler and paler. His lips trembled as he looked at Yun, his eyes filled with fear. He could hear that Yun's murderous aura was growing stronger as he spoke. "But you're different. You're very tenacious, you're persistent. You keep fighting despite your failures. You've hit the wall repeatedly, yet you still refuse to give up. Now, even a saint has been invited by you. I'm really puzzled. Why do you want to kill me at all costs? Is it just because I threaten your position? From the beginning to the end, you've never thought about who the person you want to kill is or what he's done for this continent. The only thing you think about is yourself, your own interests, and your own position. What hero, what hero? In your eyes, they're all worthless." Yun's voice grew more agitated as he said, "Today, I suddenly understand that I shouldn't have let you go. I've let you go again and again. Not only have I let myself down, I've let your father down as well. If you continue to live, your father will only suffer more in the future and bear more humiliation. It's better to get the pain over with than to prolong it. He can't make up his mind to kill you." Yun said quietly, "Then I'll help him." It was not only Dongfang Xingchen, but Shimen Huanyu and the other saints were also pale. Yun's words were not only directed at Dongfang Xingchen, but also at the few of them. Dongfang Xingchen still had the identity of the Eastern Celestial Palace's young lord, Dongfang Haoren's son. They did not even have this connection. And Sinyu's eyes flashed with ruthlessness as she said, "Let's go together and kill him." Shimen Huanyu shouted at the same time, "Perhaps no one is his opponent in a one-on-one fight, but let's go together." I don't believe that we can't defeat him alone. If we don't risk our lives now, when will we? With the command, more than 40 top-notch experts in Supreme Tower brandished their weapons in unison and charged towards Yun Yang from all directions as they cheered for a fight. Yun Yang hollered. Good timing. With a flash of purple light, Yun Yang did not use the purple jade flute anymore. Instead, he hung it on his belt and held the divine edge in his hand. Like a tiger charging into a flock of sheep, he charged forward without backing down. As the attacks rained down from all directions, the blade of heavens was suddenly expanded, turning into a long saber that was no less than 100 feet long. Like a bolt of lightning in the clear sky, it swept past, and in the blink of an eye, 98 slashes followed. Clang, clang, clang. It was only a moment of contact, but the countless weapons of the saints broke into pieces without exception. Since Yun Yang's debut, there had never been any weapon that could compete with the divine edge. Today was no exception. As countless weapons shattered, blood spurted into the sky. It had only been a moment, but the Holy Sun's side had already suffered heavy casualties. Yun Yang's cultivation base was far superior, and he was complemented by the divine blade. Coupled with the endless divine art and his marvelous saber skills, who could stop him? He was invincible. A moment later, a series of tragic cries rang out. Saints, leave quickly. Everyone present was a top-notch cultivator. They quickly came to a conclusion. They could not do anything to Yun Yang even if they were to gang up on him. At most, they could only slow him down slightly. As the leaders of their side, when were the saints going to leave if not now? But leave? An inexplicable expression flashed across the faces of the chosen saints. If they still could not kill Yun Yang this time, then they would not have another chance in this lifetime. Moreover, they had completely offended him. Even if they could temporarily escape today, what about tomorrow? From the lofty saints, would they become a street rat that everyone hated? Facing a supreme cloud who could step into the bound of universe's pinnacle saint cultivation base at any time, who could rest easy? Shiman Huanyu shouted, "Attack together!" Dongfang Xingchen drew his sword and hollered, "Kill him!" All the chosen were of one mind at this moment, and they all rushed out together. Naturally, the cultivation base of the saints was not low. Dongfang Xingchen's cultivation base was the cream of the crop, having already reached the pinnacle of a second-level Saint Lord. Leading the charge, his side's morale was greatly boosted. 46 Saint Lords surrounded Yun Yang and fought in circles. Their fists, palms, claws, and legs were all exerted with all their might. Facing the sea of attacks formed by the world's top-notch combat power, Yun Yang was not the slightest bit afraid. Saber Truth. Destiny Blade was executed slowly, each move like a bolt of lightning that could split the heaven and earth. The battle fell into a stalemate. Although the chances of 40-odd people killing Yun Yang were slim, their combined combat power was clear for all to see. It was impossible for Yun Yang to defeat so many people in such a short amount of time, not to mention that the other party had all decided to fight with their lives on the line. Instead, Yun Yang seemed to be at a disadvantage. At this moment, a shadow appeared on top of the wall. His eyes shone brightly as he glared at Yun Yang. His eyes, which were like dead ashes, were paying close attention to this huge battle. His entire body was like a shadow that was attached to the top of the wall. In the next moment, he disappeared from the top of the wall and turned into nothingness. Yun Yang did not take a single step back. He countered every move that came his way, his saber light flashing as he protected himself and blocked the enemy's attacks. Even though he was surrounded and attacked by countless experts who were giving their all, wishing that they could kill Yun Yang with a single strike, Yun Yang's heart was still as calm as ice. The weapons, fists and palms that came at him from all directions were like projections that had been rehearsed in his mind beforehand. He was crystal clear about the subsequent changes of each move and style. His heart was like a calm well, reflecting the enemy's attacks clearly. In fact, the state of mind of every single person when they attacked and the changes in their emotions could be reflected in this clear well. It was a subtle feeling that everything in the world was under his control. This is the pinnacle state of mind of a Saint Lord. Everything is in the heart, untainted by the mundane world. Realization dawned upon Yun Yang. At that moment, a silhouette pounced forward like a bolt of lightning. Where Yun Yang's long saber passed, the other party's weapon had already been sliced in half. At the same time, he had a feeling that this person would not retreat but advance instead, charging into Yun Yang's embrace in a desperate attempt to fight with his life on the line. Yun Yang wanted to kill the other party with his saber, but as the thought flashed through his mind, he had an ominous feeling. It was as if there was a great threat that had been hiding in the dark and had yet to make a move, but it was glaring at him like a lion preying on a rabbit. Therefore, the saber's momentum was unexpectedly slow. When experts exchanged blows, a split second was the difference between life and death. The silhouette took advantage of this slight delay to successfully charge into Yun Yang's saber web. While he was slashed by the web of saber web that protected him, he threw a palm strike at Yun Yang's chest with all his might. With a roar, Yun Yang chopped the person into two, but he could not help but stagger and take a step back. Seeing that their side had gained the upper hand, the 40 or so experts who were involved in the siege surged forward in high spirits. Although Yun Yang's strength was unparalleled, there was a limit to one's strength. The moment just now had proven this point. The best opportunity to kill Yun Yang was now. While Yun Yang endured the heavy palm strike, he felt the pressure multiply and the situation of the battle took a sudden turn for the worse. Yun Yang, who was forced into a disadvantageous position, threw out 2 styles and 4 styles at the same time, attempting to turn the tide. However, he could not help but take 3 steps back under the relentless attack. Seeing that Yun Yang was at a disadvantage, the opponent pressed forward again. Even the broken sabers, swords, and weapons that had been broken were used to form a dense killing net in front of Yun Yang. It was as if thousands of soldiers were attacking. The sabers slashed, the blades slashed, and the swords pierced through the heart. Kill him! Kill him! Dongfang Xingchen bellowed. Art of blazing blood! With a loud boom, a second-grade Saint Monarch pounced forward without hesitation, forcefully resisting Yun Yang's divine edge with his body of flesh and blood. While his body was pierced by the divine edge, he detonated his own body. It was a self-detonation technique of a Saint Lord. Yun Yang grunted and retreated again. This time, he even began to stagger a little. However, the emerald green vine that had appeared repeatedly appeared out of thin air once more. With a twist and turn in the air, it had already collected all the souls in the field. Faced with this scene, Dongfang Xingchen and the others were inexplicably shocked, but they had no time to think about it. If Yun Yang did not die now, it would be them. Whether or not their souls were destroyed was no longer the main point. They were only stunned for a moment before they resumed their attacks, this time stronger than before. Yun Yang, on the other hand, almost started cursing. Emmy. This little glutton actually came out at this time to take advantage of the situation. Can't you look at the situation and judge the situation? Emmy. Yun Yang bellowed in his consciousness. You. Can't you wait for a while? Do you really think I'm at a disadvantage and have no time to deal with the remnant souls? This young master is wholeheartedly setting up a trap to lure out the fellow who's hiding in the corner and has yet to make a move. You, on the other hand, swung your vines to collect the spoils of war. What should I do if I startle him? Ayaya. Emmy knew that it had made a mistake. Its leaves and vines curled into a ball at once, covering its face as it cried out softly. Ah! Ayaya. Yun Yang sighed in frustration. Like owner like pet. Yun Yang's way of doing things had always been 9 feet high, and he was in no position to criticize Emmy. At least, he was not in the position to be so righteous. The strange shadow that had been lurking at the end of the bridge had already infiltrated the battlefield. Following the Saint Lord's battle cries, it moved among the Saint Lord's shadows without anyone noticing. From this shadow, it moved to another shadow and then to another, probably approaching Yun Yang step by step. Its current position was extremely close to Yun Yang. It was only a step away from Yun Yang. In fact, it was already ready to attack. However, at this delicate juncture, a sudden throbbing feeling that originated from the soul emerged. The strange shadow shuddered, almost losing its soul. Chapter 1382. This was a unique fluctuation that belonged to the soul. If it was not the purest form of the soul, it would be impossible to notice it. Even if the Saint Lords in front of him had a high cultivation base, they did not know much about this kind of aura. However, this strange silhouette was unimaginably aware of this fluctuation. The shadowy figure didn't dare to act rashly. He cast a furtive glance over, only to see a dark green vine coiling around the area, coiling, and actually collecting all the souls of the fallen sage monarchs. In the blink of an eye, the dark green vine disappeared as well. Although it was only for a moment, the silhouette was truly frightened out of his wits. At this moment, he, who was almost out of his wits, burrowed into the ground without saying a word. Not only did he not dare to come out again, he simply left through the underground. It would be more appropriate to describe it as fleeing for his life. Yun Yang brandished the divine edge in his hand, performing the divine edge in a series of strikes, continuing to create a state where he was at a disadvantage and extremely passive. However, what he felt was that the source of the powerful threat had inexplicably disappeared. Yun Yang knew at once that Emmy's action just now had alerted the enemy, and he could not help being speechless for a long time. The trap that he had painstakingly set up for a long time had been eaten up by this little glutton. He had even confirmed what the threat was: the demon's soul. Only the demon's soul could cause such a degree of threat to him. Now was a godsend opportunity. As long as the soul demon targeted him and was locked down by him, Emmy would attack. With Emmy's enhanced natural deterrence to the soul, it would be able to devour the fellow in a very short period of time without leaving anything behind. However, the opportunity to devour him had been lost. Sigh! Yun Yang let out a long howl, his anger raging, but he could not bear to punish Emmy. However, there were so many punching bags in front of him. If he did not make use of the trash, when would he die? The first 7 styles and 14 styles of the Divine Edge were unleashed consecutively for the first time. The earth-shattering and earth-shaking power filled the entire firmament. The situation that was thought to be difficult to reverse was reversed in an instant, taking a sharp turn. Dongfang Haoren and the others escorted Ning Fengxue and found a remote and quiet cave to treat his injuries. Unfortunately, the 3 palace masters could only stare blankly at Ning Fengxue's severed arm. Even if they used their best techniques and elixirs, even if the 3 palace masters joined hands, they still couldn't help Ning Fengxue recover. They couldn't help but look at each other in shock. However, with the 3 of them working together, they were still able to help Ning Fengxue recover some of her mental strength. Seeing that Ning Fengxue's complexion was rosy and her life was no longer in danger, the 3 of them finally relaxed. What's going on? This matter is really like a child losing his mother. It's a long story. Ning Fengxue sighed sadly. This time, we've really lost too much face. Without waiting for the 3 of them to ask, Ning Fengxue told them everything that had happened after he met Yun Yang. The 3 of them listened with solemn expressions, a strange feeling rising in their hearts. Ning Fengxue concluded in the end, "From what I can see, although Yun Yang seems to have gone on a killing spree these few days and is ruthless, he's actually still holding back. He doesn't want things to get out of hand. He doesn't even want to kill too many people. However, asking me to help him in the end has directly triggered Yun Yang's long-hidden killing intent." He sighed softly. "I'm afraid that Supreme Cloud is really going to go on a killing spree next." The 3 of them were stunned. Beigong Lioli murmured, "He's been holding back. He's completely enraged. He's really going to go on a killing spree." The 3 of them looked at each other and suddenly cried out in unison, "This is bad." Dongfang Haoren was the first to yell angrily, "Ning Fengxue, you old thing, you already knew that Supreme Cloud was going to go on a killing spree, yet you told us the whole story in such detail. You're obviously buying time here." Ning Fengxue coughed and said, "Palace Lord, you said that I've told you the whole story in detail. Is there anything wrong with my words? If the 3 palace lords don't know Yun Yang's background and recklessly go against him, won't you end up like me?" The 3 palace lords' mouths were twisted in disbelief. This old thing, his words were reasonable, but he was still doing it on purpose. If he did not want to waste time, he could have just said, "Go quickly. Supreme Cloud has the means to kill a half-step saint. He's about to go on a killing spree." Then, one of the 3 of them had to go. Leaving 2 behind to watch Ning Fengxue's wounds was more than enough. As long as one of the 3 went, the situation could be contained and at least a few lives could be saved. The 3 of them said that they did not mind, but Yun Yang was their son after all. Even if they had to cripple his cultivation base to nurture him. Still, it was better than death. As for going against Yun Yang, whether Ning Fengxue said that Yun Yang had a trump card or not, the 3 of them would not attack him. At this moment, Beigong Lioli's face suddenly turned pale, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His expression changed again and again, and he reached out to take out the 2 jade pendants, only to see that they had been completely shattered, and their surfaces were covered with cracks that looked like spider webs. The moment he took them out, the 2 jade pendants turned into a pile of powder with a soft crack. Beigong Lioli's face turned green. He was completely dumbfounded. Dongfang Haoren asked carefully, What happened?" Beigong Lioli looked at the pile of powder in his palm and said expressionlessly, Wu Shuang is dead, Tianyun is also dead. They both died in a manner that left no trace of their lives. Shimin Fanfu and Dongfang Haoren's expressions changed drastically. A son of heaven had fallen? And two of them had died at once. One of them was the son of the Northern Wilderness Demonic Palace Lord, Beigong Wu Shuang. Their breathing gradually quickened as they looked at each other. Without another word, they tore the space apart and flew out. Beigong Lioli did not rush over. He just sat there, his eyes quietly looking at the two piles of powder in his palm, motionless and speechless for a long time. Out of nowhere, there seemed to be two adorned little children running over with a smile, one soft hand hugging his right leg and acting like a spoiled child. Daddy? The other chubby child hugged his left leg and raised his tender little face. Master! Beigong Lioli's lips trembled and his entire body trembled. His originally tall and burly body was now bent like an old man with one foot in the grave. His entire body was curled up. Ning Fengxue sighed inwardly and said in a low voice, Palace Lord, it's better to go take a look. There are 4 sons of saints in the demonic palace, there are still 2 more. What if? Beigong Lioli raised his head, flames burning in his eyes, evaporating all the mist. He took a deep breath and said calmly, the remaining 2 are Huan Wenyuan and Lanting. Lanting is indifferent to fame and fortune and won't fight for it. Whatever he says, he'll just follow what others say and won't put it into action. Although Huan Wenyuan is born with a cheap mouth and an idiot who wants to see the world in chaos, he has his own judgment of right and wrong. Among the 4, he's the only one who has never thought of becoming the palace lord. The 2 of them definitely won't die because they'll only scold Supreme Cloud a few times at most, but they'll never really do anything to him. His voice was calm and weak, like a whisper in the wind. Chapter 1383. Ning Fengxue said softly, but there's a reason for this. Supreme Cloud can't be blamed. Palace Lord, you can't take it out on him. Can't be blamed. Beigong Lioli murmured. His eyes had lost focus as he stared blankly ahead. He did not say a word as he turned into a statue. If Supreme Cloud was to be blamed and he could seek revenge from him, Beigong Lioli would not be so upset. However, he could not be blamed. It was his own son who had sought death. And the whole thing was carried out under the planning of the 3 great palace masters. How could he seek revenge? Ning Fengxue watched from the side, clearly seeing the burly palace lord of the Northern Wilderness Demonic Palace, who had always been tall and sturdy, sitting there in a daze without moving. However, his jet-black hair was turning white bit by bit. Ning Fengxue turned her head, stood up, and quietly left the cave. She quietly sat down at a place far away from the cave entrance. At this moment, he actually had no courage at all. He didn't dare, nor could he bear to sit in front of his father who had just lost his own son. He could not face the guilt in his heart. He was the one who had stalled for time. Ning Fengxue heaved a long sigh into the sky. He could not understand why such an indomitable hero could not teach his own son and disciple well. Didn't they say that the father is a hero and the son is a good man? Ning Fengxue looked at the sky. Why is it like this? Saber light soared into the sky. As it swept across heaven and earth, there was also a surge of bloodlight that permeated the surroundings. This was the first time Yun Yang had unleashed his full power since he had ascended to the bound of universe. It was also the moment when his murderous aura was at its strongest and angriest. Ever since the saber light shone, the bloodlight that soared into the sky had never stopped. 1 slash, 2 slashes. I understand that you want to kill me. For the sake of Supreme Heaven Pavilion, for the sake of your goals, I understand that you feel threatened. I understand that you've worked so hard for so many years and are worried that I'll replace you. I understand that. Yun Yang roared as he swung his saber. All the reasons you think you have, all the conspiracies you have created, all the groundless crimes you have committed, you can have them all, but at least you have a fig leaf. With a fig leaf, I still think it's within the rules. No matter how unwilling I am, I'll still force myself to give you face, and give you 3 palace masters' face. I'll play with you. The 3 great heavenly palaces have protected this world for a long time. I am willing to give their descendants another chance. I hope you will stop. It doesn't matter to me, it doesn't matter. It's just a little grievance. But now, even after I've revealed my identity, you still want to attack me. You won't stop until you're dead. Previously, You pretended that you didn't know anything and that everything was within the rules to justify yourselves. But today, he brazenly attacked me, the publicly acknowledged hero of the continent. Even death cannot atone for their crimes. We will not show them mercy. I've never been angry at you for attacking me. In this world, those who are not envied by others are mediocre. I've never been afraid, nor have I cared how many opponents I have or how strong they are. However, you shouldn't have attacked the continent's hero, disregarding his contributions to this continent. If you were only angry because you attacked me, all of you would have been dead a few days ago. Now, I've confirmed one thing. The reason you've laid your hands on the heroes is because of your own selfishness and personal interests. There's no other reason. So, why should I be merciful and leave you to cause trouble in this world? I can imagine that after me, as long as there are others who stand in your way and hinder your benefits, you'll still come up with all sorts of excuses, reasons, and unscrupulous methods to target them. No matter who they are, what they stand for, or what they've done for humanity, it doesn't matter to you. They'll only be your stumbling blocks that must be removed as soon as possible. Is the safety of the entire human race not as important as a seed of yours? Go on your way. Yun Yang questioned furiously as he slashed his saber again and again. One after another, heads flew into the air amidst the flashes of saber light amidst his furious questioning. Blood splattered all over the ground. More than 40 attackers, including the sons of saints, had died by now. The survivors were barely holding on. Each of them was sweating profusely, their faces filled with despair. If they had known Yun Yang's true strength, they would never have dared to provoke him. A Saint Lord was already the pinnacle of this world. Even if they did not attach themselves to the 3 heavenly palaces, they would still be a lord wherever they went. What they coveted was the tens of thousands of years of glory after attaching themselves to the sons of saints. However, compared to the threat of death, that little bit of glory was nothing. The acknowledged heroes of the continent, the meritorious officials who have contributed a lot to the bound of universe, are you going to kill them just like that? Who do you think you are? Yun Yang roared angrily. Just because you're the sons of saints? Bull ****. Your father is going to slaughter all of you sons of saints today. The saber light flashed. Crack, crack, crack. The void ruptured. 9 streaks of saber light flashed in the sky, and another 9 saint monarchs' heads fell off in unison. Blood splattered as the sky was dyed crimson. Jia Shixiang let out a blood-curdling scream. His entire body was split into 2 from his waist to his abdomen. Before he could activate his saint energy to heal himself, the dense saber chi that had already invaded his body had already exploded in both sides of his body. A few cracking sounds could be heard, but it was enough to turn Jia Shixiang's physical body into nothingness. A ball of spiritual energy had just appeared when it was devoured by the green shadow. With the fall of a large number of saints, the 3rd son of saint had finally appeared. What you want are benefits and positions. I can't give it to you. Yun Yang's voice reverberated through the clouds. What I can give is justice for myself, justice for the people of the world. Give justice to all the human heroes who fought against the demons. From today onwards, whoever dares to do such a shady business shall be executed immediately. 9 familial exterminations. Heaven and earth, all shall be executed. Boom! And Sinew let out a shrill cry as her head exploded. Her body then turned into dust under the continuous saber light. Her spiritual energy was also annihilated by the green shadow, leaving no trace behind. The 4th son of saint. Ha ha ha! Yun Yang guffawed. His aura did not diminish as he continued to wield his saber like lightning. Conspiracies and schemes, how effective can they be in the face of absolute power? Shimen Huanyu, die for your father. The saber light converged into a long river that surged forward, aiming straight for the other palace lord's legitimate son, Shimen Huanyu. Shimen Huanyu's face was pale, his eyes filled with fear as he retreated. He had long become accustomed to his manners. The 5 guards beside him hollered and charged forward with all their might. Son of Saint, leave quickly. This is your last chance. One of the East Celestial Palace's Saint Lords seized the opportunity when Yun Yang attacked Shimen Huanyu with his saber, becoming one with his sword, using the purest and most direct method to kill Yun Yang. As he struck with his sword, he roared, "If you don't leave now, it'll really be too late." Dongfang Xingchen, Yuzhen Xiao, and Feng Patian unleashed their final attack together. Without waiting for the result, they turned and ran. Behind the three of them, there were dozens of guards who charged towards Yunyang as if they did not care about their own lives, attempting to stop him for a moment and fight for a chance for the three of them to escape. The three of them found a slim chance of survival and fled quickly. However, Shimin Huanyu, who bore the brunt of the attack, was still locked by Yunyang's saber light. There was no room for him to escape, and he could only cry out in pain, "Save me!" "Don't worry, not only will you not live, they won't be able to escape either." Facing the desperate counterattack of the enemies before him, the saber in Yunyang's hand disappeared abruptly, replaced by a purple glow. The purple jade flute was in his hand. With the flute in his hand, Yunyang roared and used the flute as a sword. The long-awaited "what harm is there in slaughtering the entire world" reappeared. With a loud boom, purple light poured into the sky. The entire sky was filled with endless purple sword energy, as if thousands of lightning bolts had exploded at the same time. It was as if the Milky Way had descended from the heavens, descending upon the mortal realm. Cries of agony could be heard as the ultimate killing move appeared once again. After Yunyang executed this move, he completely disregarded the sword's momentum. He separated his hands and tore the space in front of him apart, taking a step forward to meet Feng Potion's horrified face. Swoosh! After the saber strike, Feng Potion was split into two halves from his head to his crotch. The saber energy exploded immediately, further splitting the two halves of his body apart. Then, there was still a flash of green light that engulfed him. Yunyang did not stop, tearing the space apart once more. His saber strike was like a thunderbolt, causing Yu Zhenxiao and Dongfang Xingchen to spit blood and stagger several hundred feet back. Behind him, using the purple jade flute to unleash a move capable of slaughtering the entire world, it engulfed Shimin Huanyu and the other Saint Monarchs. Although Shimin Huanyu was blocked by several people at the back, what he saw was everyone in front of him being engulfed by the purple intent and strangely turned into dust. Thereafter, under his horrified gaze, the purple jade flute struck his head as expected. With a soft bang, Shimin Huanyu did not even have the time to let out a scream before he turned into nothingness. In fact, it was not only Shimin Huanyu, but all the surrounding experts who were involved in the siege had all turned into ashes under the ultimate killing move and the boundless power of the purple jade flute. Those who were killed by the purple jade flute would not even have the chance to manifest their spiritual force. Their bodies and souls would be destroyed immediately. Emmy, who was in the deific consciousness space, was hopping mad, but it dared not go against the purple jade flute. Just as the soul demon was afraid of Emmy, like a mouse avoiding a cat, Emmy was also terrified of the purple jade flute. The last survivor, Yu Zhenxiao, spat out mouthfuls of blood as he retreated, his face pale. Dongfang Xingchen's white robe that was usually whiter than frost was now so dirty that it could no longer be seen. His hair was disheveled and his eyes were filled with terror as he shouted, Yunyang, Yunyang, you can't kill me. You've received my father's great kindness. Are you being ungrateful by killing me? How will you face my father if you kill me? Spare my life. I'll be eternally grateful for your kindness in this lifetime. Yunyang's murderous intent was boiling. Spare you? I've killed 60 to 70 people here, and I've already killed 6 of the 8 holy sons who were involved in the conspiracy against me. Why should I spare you, the young palace lord who attacked me the most ruthlessly and spared no effort? On what basis? Is your identity more honorable than Shimin Huanyu and Beigong Wushuang? Yunyang said coldly, other than being Dongfang Haoren's son, what else do you have? Who do you think you are? With a son like you, Dongfang Haoren will only be shamed for 10,000 years and have no face to see anyone. Today, I'll get rid of you for him. Yunyang sprung up, his saber light shining brightly like the sun as his murderous intent intensified. It was at this moment. The void behind Dongfang Xingchen was torn apart. Yu Zhenxiao struck out with his sword. Go! Don't let master die! Dongmen Xingchen let out a loud cry the instant the saber light slashed down. He suddenly kicked Yu Zhenxiao, who was guarding him, into the air. Then, he crossed his palms and slapped Yu Zhenxiao's back. Yu Zhenxiao cried out in bewilderment, but he flew up like a shield to meet Yunyang's blade. His eyes were filled with disbelief, despair, and hatred as he cried out hoarsely, Dongfang Xingchen. However, Yunyang's resolute strike had already landed. There was no turning back, and he was dead. In midair, the 2 people who had suddenly appeared from the torn space had the time to shout, Stop! Both of them cried out at the same time, but only one of them managed to finish his sentence. It was West Heaven Saint Palace's Shiman Fafu. The other person who had stopped midway was Dongfang Haoren. He rushed over hurriedly, tearing the void several times in a row, almost surpassing his own limits. When he finally arrived at the scene of the incident after tearing the last crack, he hurriedly tried to escape. He only managed to shout one word, but what he saw was his son kicking his disciple and sending Yu Zhenxiao to Yunyang's saber with both palms in order to escape. As for Dongfang Haoren, he made use of the recoil to turn and escape. Without looking back, he was already tens of thousands of feet away. His disciple, on the other hand, had been unprepared to be kicked out because he was trying to protect him. Looking at the scene, Dongfang Haoren felt as if someone had hammered his head. He saw stars and could not utter the last word no matter how hard he tried. In the blink of an eye, Yunyang had crushed Yu Zhenxiao's physical body into dust. With a wave of his sleeve, he retracted his spiritual energy back into his deific consciousness space. Just as he was about to raise his saber to chase after Dongfang Xingchen, he saw Shiman Fafu and Dongfang Haoren. The two palace lords' expressions were indescribably complicated, their gazes filled with malice as they stared at Yunyang. With the delay, Dongfang Xingchen had already escaped tens of thousands of feet away, but he did not even dare to turn his head back. Naturally, he had no idea what had happened here. The purple aura on Dongfang Haoren's face rose abruptly as he hollered, "Bastard! Come back here!" Chapter 1384. Dongfang Xingchen turned a deaf ear to it. He was already scared out of his wits and could only think of running for his life. He could not think of anything else. Dongfang Haoren roared and stretched out his hand. He tore through the air and pulled Dongfang Xingchen, who was running for his life thousands of feet away, back. Dongfang Xingchen's mind was still muddled when he was pulled back. He did not even see who had grabbed him and fell to the ground in a daze. He knelt down with a plop and kowtowed repeatedly. "Spare me, don't kill me. I'm a despicable person, I'm a beast, I'm a bastard." He was completely scared out of his wits. Heavens, Shiman Huanyu and Beigong Wushuang were people of the same status as him, but they had been killed right in front of him. The blood, gurgling, Dongfang Haoren's facial muscles twitched. Shiman Fanfu's face was contorted as well. At this moment, his gaze towards Dongfang Haoren was tinged with sympathy. Yunyang's expression was cold. What was done was done. The people were all killed. The two palace lords are here. Let's see what you do next. No matter what, I'll take it. Shiman Fanfu's lips still had traces of blood. His face was pale and he was no longer as elegant as he had been when they first met. His gaze towards Yunyang was constantly changing. There was a sigh, a helplessness, and occasionally, a deep hatred that flashed across his eyes. When he was tearing through the air, the jade fate pendant in his embrace had shattered continuously. His divine soul had been injured thrice. He already knew that one of his sons and two of his disciples were dead. They had all died in the most extreme way, with their souls destroyed. At this moment, although he was looking at Yunyang with a complicated gaze, his heart was actually a blank space. It was not just him. The corners of Dongfang Haoren's lips were dripping with blood as well. Looking at his son who was frantically kowtowing and begging for mercy, his mind was completely blank. He could only hear the rumbling of thunder as his heart and soul were almost shattered. It was as if stars were exploding in front of him. He could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. To Dongfang Haoren, he would rather see his son killed by Yunyang in battle. Although he was in the wrong, he still fought to the death with Yunyang. He would rather see his son's body crushed and his soul destroyed than to see his son betray his senior brother and then kowtow and beg for mercy without a shred of backbone. Especially, she had already been standing here for a while, but her son, who was already scared out of his wits, had yet to wake up. He was still kowtowing and begging for mercy. "I'm a despicable person, I'm a beast, I'm a turtle bastard. Then who am I? What am I?" At this moment, Dongfang Haoren felt that he had lost a great deal of face. Even if he were to die now, he would be too ashamed to face his ancestors. For a moment, the three of them were silent. They stared at each other for a while. Yunyang's gaze was open and aboveboard. He did not avoid the other's gaze, but rather, his gaze was directed at the two palace lords of the Eastern and Shiman heavenly palaces. Dongfang Xingchen finally sensed that something was amiss and sneakily raised his head. Seeing Dongfang Haoren, he suddenly burst into tears and crawled to Dongfang Haoren's side. He hugged Dongfang Haoren's thigh and screamed with a distorted face, "Father! Father. It's Yunyang. Kill him, kill him. He's a devil, father. Shut up. Dongfeng Haoren's body jerked as he sent Dongfeng Xingchen flying away. Then, he slapped him hard on the face. This slap was extremely forceful. Dongfeng Xingchen's body spun 17 to 18 rounds in the air like a spinning top before he collapsed to the ground like a pile of mud. He did not even have the time to make a sound before he fainted. What happened? Dongfeng Haoren looked at Yunyang, his gaze bitter and indescribable. How did things come to this stage? Yunyang shrugged and said indifferently, "What happened? Wasn't everything in front of them within the expectations of the palace masters? Why are you asking me instead? Your son is right in front of you. When your son wakes up, just ask him directly. I'm not in the mood to waste my breath now." The murderous intent in his eyes did not fade. "Don't worry, I'll only kill him after you've asked him. So many people have died, but the mastermind is still alive. How can there be such a logic in this world?" Yunyang sucked in a deep breath and faced Dongfeng Haoren's murderous glare as he spoke calmly and seriously. "Yunyang." Shimin Fafu could not hold it in any longer and hissed, "Aren't your methods too vicious? Dozens of Saint Lords have fallen in this battle. It's like half of the 3 heavenly palaces' territory has been destroyed here. How could you do this?" Shimin Fafu looked around the battlefield and felt his eyes were about to split open. Saint Lords were the pinnacle of combat power in the bound of universe. Any one of them was precious, but so many of them had been lost in this battle. It had to be said that this loss was too great. Yunyang smiled insincerely and said, "Palace Lord Shimin's focus is a little biased. Your son, Shimin Huanyu, also lost his life in my hands. If you want revenge, there are many reasons. Whether it's because you hate me for being vicious and destroying the bound of universe's countless pillars or because you want to avenge your son, there are plenty of reasons that are available for you to choose. It's up to you." He looked coldly and sharply at Shimin Huanyu, and said in a mocking tone, "I know that your heart is in pain, and I also know that you are very dissatisfied with me, but your feelings have nothing to do with me. Especially the excuse that you just gave me, it made me look down on you." Yunyang crossed his arms in front of his chest and said coldly, "Isn't the right and wrong already clear? Why do you have to list out your crimes? If you want to take revenge or find trouble with me, then bring it on." He laughed. "It's not the first time you've inverted right and wrong anyway. My son is like this, your father is like this too. I, Yunyang, will take it all." Shimin Fafu's eyes were red with anger as he said coldly, "How dare you talk to me like this?" Yunyang did not back down and said coldly, "May I ask, Palace Lord, how should I talk to you? Should I bow and kneel to beg for mercy, or should I compromise and beg for my life? It's a pity that I'd rather be beaten to death than be frightened to death." Shimin Fafu was furious. His state of mind was gradually becoming unstable from the repeated injuries he had suffered. Justice and hatred surged in his heart. Although he knew that this result was foreseen, he did not expect that the moment it came true, the reality would be so severe and so painful. Total annihilation. Not a single survivor. Everyone calm down. Dongfeng Haoren slowly straightened up. His emotions were similarly agitated, but he managed to suppress his agitated heart with some effort using his mystical skill, but blood still flowed freely. Yunyang glanced sideways and was shocked to see that Dongfeng Haoren's usually upright body was now hunched. Was this a sign that the heart had died? How could Dongfeng Haoren not know that his state of mind was also unbalanced? He was even on the verge of qi deviation, but he had to force himself to speak up to stop the tense atmosphere between Yunyang and Shimin Fafu. Once the two of them started fighting, it would truly be a disaster for the world. Shimin Fafu snorted coldly and closed his eyes, cultivating his mystical skill to suppress his raging qi and blood. He tried to calm himself down, but the more he tried to suppress it, the more his emotions surged. His thoughts wandered further and further. What's the result? Dongfeng Haoren looked at Yunyang. Ever since I reappeared, from the very beginning, I first killed the 3 Xueqi brothers of the same clan. Then, there were the 13 impostors who impersonated me, and they were all annihilated. Then came today's battle. Each of the 8 holy sons had about 10 or so Saint Monarch level guards under them. Now they are all dead. 7 of the 8 holy sons have died, and your son is the 8th. Roughly speaking, there are about 90 people, not more than 100. There are also the 3 who realized their mistake and have gone to the Crimson Soul Mountain. Yun Yang frowned. I don't remember so clearly. It's about these people. Dongfeng Haoren's eyes widened like bells. Not a single one was spared? Yun Yang looked at him in surprise. Palace Lord Dongfeng, have you really gone senile? They wanted to kill me all the time, but I still held back against them. Each of them was a saint lord. Was I tired of living or did I hold back against them because they weren't ruthless enough? If it were you, would you hold back? Would you dare to hold back? Besides, I've only cleaned up those from the 3 heavenly palaces. There's still the Sacred Heart Palace that I haven't touched. He sighed. I'm too cautious in my actions, overcautious and indecisive, thinking of this and that, and too kind. I've never hardened my heart to settle it. If Senior Ning Fengxue hadn't come and enlightened me, I'm afraid I wouldn't have hardened my heart. Yun Yang's eyes were filled with melancholy as he murmured, Am I too indecisive? Dongfeng Haoren's eyelid twitched and his lips twitched. Was she too indecisive? Too kind? You came out from the Holy Land of Tian Fa and killed dozens of Saint Lords, and you say you're not ruthless enough? Then you killed the 3 Xue brothers in succession, ruthless and merciless, and you say you're not decisive enough? Dozens of Saint Lords who pretended to be Supreme Cloud were killed by you one by one, their souls destroyed without a trace, and you say you're indecisive? Today, you slaughtered more than 70 Saint Lords in one go, without hesitation and unusually decisive, and you say, you're not ruthless enough? Out of the 8 holy sons, you slaughtered 7 of them without batting an eyelid, and now you're still waiting to kill the last one. You even said this in front of his father, saying it again and again. Are you still feeling so melancholy that you're too kind and indecisive? Even if you've held back due to the circumstances, even if you've held back. Dongfeng Haoren had the urge to roll his eyes. If the way you act can still be considered as indecisive, then what will you be like when you're truly decisive in your killing? Yun Yang gave the answer himself. Actually, I'm still too weak. I'm too attached to human relations. I should be like how I was in the demon race. Without the threat of millions of lives, how would anyone care about me? Everyone wants to mess with me and use me as a stepping stone to advance. Weak? Too rigidly attached to human relations. Dongfeng Haoren shut his mouth and sucked in a deep breath. He realized that the raging qi and blood in him that he could barely suppress had actually calmed down with Yun Yang's words. So, you're the one who cured me of my qi deviation crisis? You're King amazing. With a puff, Shiman Fengfu breathed out 2 streams of white mist from his nostrils, shooting out 30 feet in a straight line, as if they were real. If the 2 drops of blood from his nose followed, he would have looked very imposing. This also means that the 30 Saint Lords who accompanied the Sons of Saint from West Heaven Saint Palace have all died in your hands. Shiman Fanfu's tone was filled with indescribable joy and sorrow. I thought you'd be grateful to me. Have I misjudged? Yun Yang said coldly. Due to Shiman Fanfu's attitude just now, Yun Yang was very dissatisfied with this Lord of West Heaven Saint Palace, so his tone was rather harsh. After all, a considerable part of the current situation was made possible by the 3 palace lords. Yun Yang had put in the effort, risked his life, and not only did he not gain any benefits, he was even blamed by others. Even when he knew that Shiman Fanfu had lost his son and disciple, as well as many of his capable subordinates, and that his state of mind was greatly affected, Yun Yang still chose to respond coldly. Shiman Fanfu suddenly howled into the sky, his aura surging as the dark clouds in the sky dispersed. His voice was filled with sorrow, murderous intent, and a thick sense of helplessness. After a long time, he finally calmed down and said in a dry voice, You're right. I really should be grateful to you. Yun Yang was stunned. Shiman Fanfu said, The instigator of this turn of events was not you, nor was it Huan Yu and the others. It was us 3 old fellows. Everything was brought upon by us 3 old fellows. Towards you, who had worked so hard, we should only thank you. But being grateful to you is one thing. But right now, there's still a barrier in my heart that I can't get over. I'm afraid I won't be nice to you for a while. Please forgive me, Supreme Cloud. Yun Yang felt relieved when he heard this, an inexplicable respect rising in his heart. He said, Senior is too polite. Shiman Fanfu's expression was conflicted as he sighed in melancholy. His mood was low, showing that he was still unable to calm his emotions. Dongfeng Haoren's face was dark as he said, "This matter was indeed caused by us 3 old men being too optimistic. We never would have thought that they would dare to publicly attack you without any fear." "How could they dare? How could they dare?" Yunyang smiled faintly. "I shouldn't answer this question. Your son is right beside you. Won't you know once you wake him up? I'm sure he wouldn't dare lie in front of the 2 lords of the palace. Would he?" Shimin Fanfu's gaze froze as he turned to look at Dongfeng Xingchen. His son was dead, his disciple was dead, but Yunyang, the murderer, was unable to hate, be angry, or even complain. How could Dongfeng Haoren, who was also the culprit, be spared? Dongfeng Xingchen slowly woke up. When he opened his eyes, he saw that his father and Shimin Fanfu were really nearby. He heaved a sigh of relief. He was safe. His life was saved. "I've been coaxing my wife these days. This woman insisted on going out to play, but I didn't want to. Why should I go out on such a hot day? She's been arguing with me for a week now. If all else fails, it looks like I'll have to go out myself. Sigh, she's not afraid of me now that she's beaten up so lightly.